It's time to add another verse to the song of Sir Waymar P. Royce. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Lucas.
And I think that's how our introduction goes. And today... I hope so. Today we are going to be talking about Game of Thrones episodes... Well, depends on how you define them. I go by the Hollywood way of doing it, where it's episode 203, 204, 205, and 206. But according to Wikipedia, there are episodes 13, 14, 15, and 16. Or Season 2, Episode 3, Season 2, Episode 4, Season 2, Episode 5, and Season 2, Episode 6. Because, why not? How are you today, sir?
I'm good, but unfortunately, I was watching some of the recaps of episodes, and all I can see is Theon's lame smile as he's going to the pike. He's just sitting back, like the wind's blowing through his face. He's just got this lame smile on his face. It's just so lame. Just like, coming to my house. Just, oh gosh. And then, of course, he gets home, and he gets a smackdown laid on him, just like by his entire family. That can't feel good.
Yeah, so do you want to just get into episode 203?
Let's do it.
Okay. I was going to say if you had any observations beforehand, aside from poor Alfie Allen's awkward half smile as he's going back home and saying TH like an F sound.
Oh, yeah. I didn't notice that. One other thing too. Mm-hmm. Ricaro lives.
Yeah,
one
correction.
Of Daenerys' blood rider. He lives.
Correction from the last episode where we had a mourning time for him. I was they don't pay enough attention to him on the show for me to remember him, and I'm not one of those people who rewatch the same episode over and over, so I know exactly who that is. I roughly know, and I feel like it was the Rise of Skywalker Chewbacca fake out where it's like, look at this head, it's one of your writers, it's your favorite writer, and you're like, so they did take liberties from nope, they did not take liberties from there. They just wanted another emotional scene, I guess.
I guess, but I mean, he is quite a minor character. But still, he's one of the few Dothraki writers with her, and as she's traveling through this continent, right? This is one of her blood writers that was with her from the beginning. And that's why it's special to me, because he was there from the very beginning, and it's but you know who does die? Yeah, Doria dies. She dies in the Red Waste. You know who's still alive? Doria. I guess her contract was renewed, but Ricaro's wasn't. I mean,
yeah, we'll get.
Of course, she's the hooker, right? And they're gonna keep her alive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. She's the hot serving maid, and they have to build tension in another. They have to build what is it? Conflict, quote unquote conflict. But actually, we will see how well Doria is doing by the time we get to episode 206.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's that. Okay. We'll get to 206. The ending to 206 I thought was kind of weird.
I got a lot for that one.
So,
recap?
Do you want to give us a recap of episode 203?
You got it. It begins with Snow and Craster. I don't really have much about that, but that was north of the Wall. And then where it gets awesome is Catelyn and Brienne. So we got introduced to Brienne the Beauty, Brienne of Tarth. And one kind of interesting diversion from the books is that in the show, she is now a part of Renly's Kingsguard. I know this is going to be really, really minor. But in the books, she's actually a member of his Rainbow Guard. So in the books, it's called the Rainbow Guard, not Kingsguard. And it's super minor, but I felt like that was something that was so minor they could put it in there. Considering Renly's sexual orientation, you would think that by having it the Rainbow Guard, it would kind of keep to that theme. She was the blue knight, or the blue cloak of his Rainbow Guard. So if you're wondering why was she wearing blue, they kept that part in.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. Very, very super minor quip, but it was one of those sort of things. And in the books, it was never really stated. There was no Renly scenes. So you didn't really know about his sexual orientation. But I felt like calling it the Rainbow Guard, well, maybe that would have been too much in the face of the viewer. I don't know. I like the Rainbow Guard. I like the different colors for the knights.
So does it, like, at any point, is Brienne a POV character that you've read so far? I don't know if she becomes one, but I'm just curious.
Not that I've read so far.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not that I've read so far. By the way, it's a little tricky keeping the book Clash of Kings straight with the show straight, and I'm currently reading Storm of Swords, trying to keep those three things straight.
Right,
it's
so, like,
mental challenge.
To be clear, where are you in Storm of Swords?
I'm about 200 pages away from the end.
Okay.
So I'm through most of it.
Okay. Also, like, I also want to put this out here now. You had a prediction about Jon Snow's mother. So I want you to just put it on the record what you think it is now that you're almost all the way through Storm of Swords, because I've been trying to keep track of, like, the evolution of this. So what is your prediction for Jon Snow's mother?
All right. Spoilers coming from the books. Well, this whole show is spoilers. So when Jon first meets Mance Raider, right there, I was thinking, yes, Raider. Right there, I was thinking that, I don't think that Jon is actually Ned's kid. Right there, when I read that, I just had that insight. I was like, something doesn't quite add up, because in the first book, there are some scenes from Ned's POV where he remembers his dying sister, Lyanna, saying, "Promise me, Ned, promise me," on her deathbed. They don't really go into any details in the books. That's just what you know. And when I first read it, years and years ago, I was thinking, probably like, keep Robert Baratheon okay, or something. I don't know. Or maybe like keep my secret or something. But then I was just thinking about the whole timeline and the act of having a baby. It takes 9 months, thereabouts, to have a child. And I was thinking about Ned in war. And campaigns in those times lasted for an extremely long amount of time. But I just felt like the timing didn't add up. And Ned would have to be with, I think her name was Willa, the claimed mother of Jon. He would have to be with Willa for 9 months, and then the baby's born, and then he takes the baby from Willa. It's really hard to take a baby from a mother, because Robert Baratheon's, all of his not baseborn children, his bastards, they are, well, he never actually had a child with Cersei. Well, he did actually have a child with Cersei, but died. Anyways. Yeah, in the show, but actually in the books, it's revealed that she actually aborted it herself. So it never was actually born. But anyways, I was just, all of Robert's bastards are all being raised by their mothers. And obviously, if you know any mothers in the world, you know that it's nearly impossible to separate them. Like, it's well, first of all, it's a horrible thing. And, thinking about Ned and the way the timing laid out and this, things just didn't seem to add up right. So I thought, well, I bet Lyanna is Jon Snow's mother. Just that glimpse of insight. And especially Ned's last words to Jon where, "Oh, well, when we come back, I'll tell you all about your mother." And if she's just some floozy girl like Caitlyn thinks she is, then, how could Ned tell Jon all about her? Because it seemed like Ned knew a lot about his mother. And that's where it leads me to believe that I'm pretty sure it's Lyanna. Promise me is promise that you'll take care of my child. But the big clue was that the timing just didn't seem to add up. Because he would have to be there the whole time, or he would leave and come back. It just didn't seem to add up to me. So then I thought, oh, and maybe Mance Rayder's the father, because I don't know. But then later on, I was reading and just like, I think maybe it's Rhaegar. Maybe it's the dead Prince Rhaegar whom Robert killed. And then Ned would have to separate Lyanna from Robert because Lyanna was already pregnant with Rhaegar's child. And in some strange way, that means that Jon and Daenerys are cousins. So that's my current theory.
Okay.
So that's, yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna keep an eye out for that. It's Jon Snow watch. We're gonna keep an eye out for that.
Indeed.
Or the Jon Snowball turning into an avalanche of his parent. I don't know. It's not a segment. We don't do segments on this show. Okay.
Hey, it's George R.R. Martin's fault for setting up the framework of the world, making it very realistic. Put it that way.
Yep. So realistic that summer lasts for years and winter lasts for years.
Yes, and there's dragons in the world. That's how realistic it is.
And
Absolutely.
Magic comes out of womanhood. We'll get
it's
to
so
that.
realistic that this is like the one thing that doesn't make sense.
So going back to Renly's camp. So we're introduced to Brienne of Tarth, and one thing that, like, just as a quick aside, like, they go on and on about how Loras Tyrell is such a good fighter, such a good swordsman, such a good duel. We've seen him twice, and he did beat the Mountain. That's right. He did beat the Mountain.
Yeah, but he cheated.
Right.
Though.
Well, I was gonna say, like, we've seen him twice, and both times he's failed. So, like, how good is this guy? It would have been better to, like, have one more time where he's set up to do well. But, like, for some reason, like, right after failing twice and failing really badly, they're like, oh, you did such a good job against Loras, and no one's ever defeated Loras except for that one time when the Mountain, after the Mountain had been defeated, he was about to thrash him and kill him. Like how good? Yeah. I know that they're using it to set up.
That's great.
I know. I didn't think of it until, like, I sat down and I was like, wait, why do they keep saying Loras is a good fighter? We don't have any proof. They just keep saying it to be true. Anyway.
Well, to be fair for poor Sir Loras, he fought in the finals of both of those tournaments. Brienne was in the finals, and so was Gregor. And to be fair, Gregor and Brienne kind of have the same strength score of 18, maybe 19. Shout out D&D.
No, Brienne rolled
maybe
really well
Loras
on
just
her
has
height.
Maybe Loras just has a hard time with characters like with strength 17 plus. That could be a thing.
No, he failed his Thok Zero throw.
Totally did. Well, he's not dead, so.
Let me for those people who don't know what Thok Zero is, because I actually, someone was like, your D&D reference is too deep a cut. So in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, armor class was rated on a scale of like -10 to 10, where 10 is easy to hit and 0 is really hard to hit. So instead of having a to hit score, you had a Thoko or a Thok 0 score. Thok 0 stands for to hit armor class 0. It's the number you'd have to roll in order to hit a 0 armor class. Now, I think they had charts about like how to hit it, but the easiest way to calculate to calculate whether you got a hit or not was to take your Thok 0
do
score,
math,
subtract it from their armor class, and if you were at or above that score, you hit them. So
we are a detailed podcast.
It was amazing.
We are a detailed podcast.
It was amazing, and I missed Thok 0 because having a low armor class is like it seems really cool. But that's not the case anymore. Now you just keep stacking and adding on numbers. So,
wow.
That one was for you, Gabe. Thumbs up in chat. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So also, just like as another quick aside, they probably kept it as like, oh, it's your Kingsguard Renly, because for a lot of people, they're going to use they're going to try and use like cliff notes for it, so like it's easier to say like Renly is setting up his own kingdom as a mimic of what we already have, as opposed to like creating this whole new thing that the show then has to spend 4 or 5 minutes explaining. Like, you're going to be in my Rainbow Guard. Like, it's probably implicit that it is the King's Guard, but it was probably just easier for the show to say, like, it's easier to say for the show, like, it's the King's Guard. It's different. Whereas, like, for us, we would be able to make that connection. So, that's why I think they just stuck with it, calling it the King's Guard. I think it was easier that way.
Like I said, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. This does actually...
It's not, but it's good to know. Like, I find it interesting, like, working backwards, like, reverse engineering why they make some of the choices they make. Anyway.
Very
sorry.
Good. It's okay. Let's see. Moving on from there... there's another scene with them, with Renly, Loras, and Marjorie. And basically, Caitlyn is in there to try to help gain support for Robb.
Right.
Figure just kind of work some kind of truce out to help end this crazy war with how many kings now? We got 6 kings and a queen? No, see, we got Stannis, Renly, Robb, Joff, Mance Rayder, King Beyond the Wall, and you got Daenerys. So I think there's 6. Well, 7 if you count Balon Greyjoy. 7. 7 kings for 7 kingdoms, I suppose.
I mean...
So...
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to move on now to south of the wall, but not that far south. We've got a quick Bran dream sequence, and he questions about magical beings. I guess it's sort of being alluded to, like he has some special connection with Summer, his dire wolf.
So his dire wolf is named Summer?
Yes.
Okay.
That was clear from the show. Well, I don't know. That's
I don't think that was
the books, right? They're just really detailed.
Right. I mean, we still don't know what Rickon's wolf is named, so...
Shaggy Dog.
I mean, we know that, but I don't think most viewers of the show do. I remember that. For some reason, I couldn't remember that Bran's is Summer, but that's neither here nor there. All right. So, yeah, we have a Bran sighting. Guess who else we have a sighting of?
For the Stark Kid Roundup. Stark Kids Roundup.
For some reason, I always think of the SpongeBob theme. I probably have said that before. But whenever you do that, I'm like, Stark Kids Roundup. Stark Kids Roundup. You know who else we see? I know we're jumping
Kids
ahead.
Roundup.
Cue flute. So I know this is probably jumping ahead, but we also have a Sansa sighting.
We do, yes.
Very exciting. But we actually didn't...
Who was this episode written by?
This was written by Brian Cogman.
Not D.B. Weiss and David Benioff.
Not D&D, no.
Okay, this is one area. Yeah, we're going to probably spend some time on this. Go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, well, we didn't talk about the introduction of Marjorie Tyrell at all. So, Loras has a sister.
Did you want to do that first?
No, we don't have to.
Let's do that first.
Okay. Loras has a sister. She's played by Natalie Dormer. Natalie Dormer is great. She's awesome. Like, I don't know why, and I like, my wife knows this, but like, for some reason, Natalie Dormer just like oozes sexiness, and it might just be me. Yeah, I find her like I don't know. I think she's incredibly attractive, but like, she just has like a natural sexiness to her. So, which she uses in this episode. But no, she's a good actress in general. It's really bad that I preface it with that. I'm a terrible person, but she's good. She's in a lot of things. I
feel like she looks kind of mousy to me, but
she was in Captain America: The First Avenger. I think she has a character type that she plays as well, where she sees Steve Rogers and she like winks at him. And then what's her name gets mad. The girl Peggy Carter, who's played by, I usually know her name, but she gets all mad, and that's when she like starts fighting with Cap, and then Cap finds out that she's going to get fondue with Mr. Stark. And anyway, I've gone off topic. So, but yeah, Marjorie Tyrell.
That's kind of an awkward scene.
I thought it was. I actually thought it was really like. I thought it was funny when she's like, look, I'm a queen. I gotta do things I know. Like, that's my goal.
You know, that's a great scene because it really shows how messed up Westeros is.
Well, also, how do you pronounce Marjorie Tyrell's name from the books?
Marguerite.
Marguerite.
Well, you know why? Because Marjorie sounds too much like margarine. And no, I'm sorry. No, not margarine. Just
no, Margarine Tyrell.
You'll never get that out of your head from here on out. I'm so sorry about that.
Middle finger and Margarine Tyrell.
Oh gosh. You know, it was a good scene too because it just shows how messed up this world is that they all live in. Because they live in this world where, yeah, if you are marrying a lord, that's like all you're good for is pumping out sons.
Yeah.
And it's just it's probably realistic because I was watching some more stuff about George R.R. Martin, and he models his worlds after different cultures. And I think that this type of thing really was a thing. And
no, yeah,
that's it, at least in previous cultures. And I think that having that part in the show kind of points out like how, you know, in today's modern society, how idiocracy that is. You know, like what? Like your only purpose is to pump out sons? Like that's it? And you don't really get a choice or love or anything. It doesn't matter. You just got to pump out sons and heirs and just very. I think that the more the show does that, points these things out, I think that's good.
I mean, when do you think it shifted from women being more than just like things to pump children out to like women having autonomy? Because like I feel like that's something that has happened within the where like to the point where it was a significant movement of the needle. I feel like that's happened in the last like I want to say like within the last century, because
that's a subject I haven't studied, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, I mean like like I just think like women's like putting aside women's rights movement, which happened in the 60s, right? I think. But even I mean like think about
outside of my knowledge base.
I know. I'm just saying like pre-World War I, you know, for the most part I feel like women maintain sort of a similar field where it's like their value was for the most part just directly tied to their family and how much they could get in a dowry or in a marriage or something like that. I'm pulling a little bit from Downton Abbey here, which takes place in the lead up to World War I, like after the Titanic sinks, the lead up to World War I, and then all the way up to World War II. So anyway, I think but suffice it to say, I think it's like it's still surprisingly common how often that happened, where a woman's value was basically just tied to their family name and if they could produce children. Like I think it's still probably pretty common. So it's messed up, and it's even more messed up to realize like it wasn't that long ago that was still kind of the case.
That was a great point. Yeah. It's true. Oof. I mean, that's why this kind of thing needs to be looked at for sure. And, you know, people might think that, wow, you know, this world is very, like, masculine-based, and this world that George R.R. Martin is writing is very masculine-based. But he points out a lot of these things, just like you were talking about. Speaking of women characters, should we start doing the Sansa?
Yeah, we can jump to King's Landing.
So Shay doesn't want to be Snow White. That was the first thing I thought of when that happened. Tyrion saying, "You're gonna go and be a handmaid to Sansa," and she walks in there and just like terrible. There was a Sansa and Shae scene.
That's right.
It correlates, not causation, correlation with DB Weiss and David Benioff not writing that episode. So there is a Sansa scene in there.
Yep.
I want to make this point real quick, and then I'll definitely like to hear your take on, or your reaction to the episode with her actually in it versus what I'm about to say. So in the books, Joffrey is a complete monster to her. He doesn't I think he probably does strike her himself, but usually he doesn't. Usually he has his knights beat her up. And it's not once or twice. I feel like the show doesn't really do a good job of this. She gets hit pretty frequently. It's bad. And in the books anyways, I went back and looked this up just because we were talking about Sansa and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She wears long sleeves. She wears long sleeves to hide her bruising. And, that's the direction of the books. And I felt like that's something that you could really make compelling for television. Is it spousal abuse? Is it, she's still a child, so it's child abuse. They probably could follow some of this direction in the show if they wanted to. I feel like they kind of didn't. Obviously in the books you have it from her mindset, which is just say the lines. Say the lines, act the part. Hopefully you don't get hurt too bad. And she's kind of sort of steeling herself, sort of putting her own personality into like a hidden place in her heart and putting on this hard shell. And not crying. It's kind of a thing with her pretty soon, is that she just kind of stops crying, and a lot of the fight and stuff is really taken out of her. Now, do they really go into that in the show? I felt like that's very compelling, and
yeah, I think that you can see her become more of like a shell of a person in the show, but the level of depth, I think like that's why you introduce, like that's why you would have a scene with Shae. You have a scene of Shae in there with her specific, and I guess if you want to like build it slowly, you can, but if you build it slowly, that would require you to have a lot more scenes of Sansa and Shae.
I think I pronounce her Shae. She's not foreign in the books.
Shae. But like I think like I appreciate the fact that in the show they're just like they come to this sort of like understanding of Sansa doesn't want to be alone, because like I had to remember this scene. Sansa doesn't want to be alone. Shae is there, and so that's like her confidant, kind of like how Doria is Daenerys' confidant. Like I think it's interesting if you build that, but like you have two options. You can either do sort of like the TV Cliff Notes version where it's like Shae comes in, they start building a relationship immediately. Like, they have that argument, they build a relationship, Sansa breaks down, and she starts then connecting with her like immediately. You do that, or you do what the show looks like they were going to do, which is like Sansa doesn't trust her, so she's going to be kind of guarded, but she still likes having someone else there, having some sort of female presence there, someone she feels a little bit safer with because she's so alone. And then that's when you use it as an opportunity to start like having her cry more, or having her unload her feelings or her emotions, someone to bounce off of.
Shae could be helping her change and showing the bruising on her arms.
Yeah.
That's something I think that can be shown in television, and it wouldn't take up very many scenes.
That's the other thing, is like
take off the sleeves and just see bruising up and down. I think that would be a very clear, really good visual about what is actually happening.
Yeah.
real quick on that. Yeah, Sansa. The way I knew her character from that point. She'd be very untrusting, because she knows that the queen has spies. So she wouldn't really want to, probably only comment on the handmaiden stuff, which she did in the show. So I thought that was pretty consistent. But it's interesting that direction that you were mentioning. That'd be very, very good too.
Yeah, I mean, it's all dependent on what's in the script. So like, you can't do that much if you don't. And again, you have so many different directors, and not all of them are going to read an 800 to 1,000 page book for a day's
I thought HBO was paying them to do that.
No, they're paying them to point the camera and say action.
Got it.
Actually, we'll see when we get to episode 6. I think episode 6 does a very good job. Well, we'll see. It's based off of also your assessment of what's in the book. But as far as conveying information that could be said, but needs to be shown, and to build sort of like the dramatic tension or the sort of suspense in the scene, to me, episode 6 did the best job, but it's also by one of the more experienced directors. So we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
We're still in King's Landing, so we might as well talk about Tyrion, who has a soft spot for Sansa. We also see, right? I think is this the episode where, or was it a previous episode where? I
know what you're talking about.
I know that there's a previous episode where he goes searching for her, and I know in the first episode he tells the Hound to take Sansa away, like she doesn't deserve this beating that you're giving her right now.
Right, and then she gets declothed. Oh, that's in the next episode.
Okay,
episode
so
4.
all right, we'll save
that's
that.
the next one.
So Tyrion's thing. Did you want to talk any more about Shay and Sansa?
Nope.
I was gonna the one note I have about Bran and Sansa is that it doesn't really move the needle. Like, their story doesn't really get pushed forward that much. I feel like you're still kind of just hinting at things to come, instead of actually making progress on what they're doing, unlike a lot of the other characters where it's like significant changes are happening. Like Bran is getting visions. It's like, oh, Bran's getting visions. Guess what? He was getting visions the last time we saw him too. Amazing. The story thicket. No, it's like, come on, dude. Like,
didn't that? I mean, wasn't that the one with Osha where she says that there are people that live inside other animals? I don't know if maybe that was revealed.
I don't remember.
Yeah, no, I don't have a scene by scene breakdown. I just have
the problem is
I
don't remember. That's one of the problems that I have with it overall. But anyway,
oh yeah, Tyrion.
But yeah, Tyrion, they do the fun, clever film thing where they cut between. They show Tyrion, he's talking to someone, and then he gets up and moves out of frame and turns around, and he's talking to someone else, and then gets up and moves out of frame, and he's talking to a third person. And I don't know how that was done in the book. I appreciated how they did that, even though it broke with a lot of the conventions of the show. I thought that was
so. He talked to Grandmaster Pycelle.
Yes.
He talked to Varys, and he talked to Middlefinger.
Yep.
And I'm with you. That was, well, you said it's like a common thing in TV, but that was so well done.
Yeah.
That was great.
Fun editing.
And yeah, in the book it's like one chapter, right? Just like and he meets all three separately, and he says this, and then but the way they did it in the show, hats off. That was great. Just 100% great.
I don't know if that was in the script. The behind the episode made it seem like it was a director thing, but it might have been written in the script that way. So
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I just now got what you were saying.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Took me a minute. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we will never know whose decision that was, but that was a great choice.
Yeah.
I do have one comment about Tyrion
Okay.
that I forgot to mention on a previous cast, and this was in season 1. Now he's hanging out with Shay, and he says that Tyrion's just talking and running his mouth. And yes, one of Tyrion's faults is that he talks too much. I can relate, but he he calls his father a "see you next Tuesday," and I thought that was not in line with his character at all.
You don't think he would ever
he
call
was-
his father a foul name?
Never. Nope.
Okay.
Never. He respects his father very, very much. He is also very much in fear of his father.
Mm-hmm.
And in the books too, he never, even in his thoughts, he never talks about his father like that. He's always just, whenever he's around his father, he's just observing what he's doing. It's like, oh, all these people are talking. What's my father doing? Oh, Lord Tywin's just sitting back, taking it all in. Oh, there was this remark, and Tywin wasn't doing anything. He was just looking, his eyes sparkling or something. You know, like, oh, how will my father handle this situation? So he never. He doesn't have that strong negative opinion of him. He's always has a strong opinion.
Okay.
But from an unloved son. Not from a son that's spiteful for Tywin. And then another scene that I read, because there had never been in the books until where I got to in Storm of Swords, there was never a scene with Jaime and Tywin. Never. I finally hit a scene with just the two of them in there talking to each other. And it goes against completely what we saw in season 1, where Tywin's cutting up the stag and grabs Jaime's face with his bloodied hand and saying all these praises to him. That's out of character for both of them. Just very much out of character. And yeah, I noticed that later because I felt like they were kind of off when I first watched it, but after, especially like I just said, after reading the scenes, those were two things in the first season that really just, like, you know, how we talk about, we're not sure if they understand the characters as well as maybe they should.
As well as they should, yeah. So, like, how should that scene have played out?
That's a hard one.
Like, what was off about it? Like, what was off about their relationship there? To you?
Okay, it was about this, and I know that when you're doing a television show and you're trying to convey information to the audience, you have to do it in a certain way, and you needed to show that Tywin loves Jaime just far and beyond. You know, just it's his pride and joy. But when get into a little history here.
Okay.
So Tywin was like, yeah, Jaime's gonna get Casterly Rock, right? That's his birthright. It's his birthright. That's what he's going to get. And he wants Jaime to be a lord and ruler and just pride and joy. And then Jaime joins the Kingsguard. A knight in the Kingsguard is not allowed to marry and not allowed to hold lands. So he kind of forsake his birthright. You find out later why.
Okay.
So I don't want to, go into it, but
okay.
But that part isn't hard to believe. Like, you don't need to know what happens later on to really get that point. That's something that had already happened.
Right.
We knew we gave it up. So there was already tension and hurt and pain kind of between the two characters, because Tywin's like, oh, my son's gonna inherit this land, like his birthright, and then
I guess he's not. Wow.
He's not. Maybe we can figure something like that out, right? Like, and it's not out of the question, because Barristan Selmy got kicked out of the Kingsguard. His vows got revoked. He's the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and Joffrey said, "You're too old. Get out of here." So
right.
It's not without precedent. He could still do that in this new Joffrey age. So But Joffrey wasn't, I don't really, I forgot if it was like after Robert was dead or before the scene with Tywin and Jaime, but it was, their
It had to have
relationship
been
was
after.
complicated back then.
Yeah, it would have had to have been after. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe there was still a chance for Jaime to get Casterly Rock. I don't know. But it's just very, it just felt off when I watched it that, just like, well, it's cool. They're having a scene together. This is great. Something doesn't seem right. Just knowing what I know about Tywin, never one to really reveal anything. That's what it is. That's what it is. I'm sorry it took me so long to hit it on the head. But Tywin does not reveal anything.
Yeah,
And he
sure.
revealed that, and that was very weird.
Yeah, sure he doesn't want to reveal anything. We'll get into Tywin.
Anyways, thank you for letting me...
No, that's fine.
That.
So, yeah, you were talking about Tyrion, and that bugged you in the show that Tyrion, like, insulted his father. So, but how does that come into play on this episode?
It doesn't. I just forgot to mention it.
It was
last
just
time.
okay. All right.
Sorry. No connection.
No. It's fine. So I don't know if you know this, but I think Peter Dinklage and Lena Headey like love working with each other. So anytime we get a scene between the two of them, even though the entire time they're just being mean to each other, they that's what I've heard anyway. I don't know if it's true. I hope it's true. But apparently, like, they really enjoy scenes together, and they enjoy like acting with each other. So anytime they're together, it's like especially electric, even though they're just like both mad at each other the whole scene. I appreciate that. Tyrion's big idea is like, in order to garner more support, he needs to marry the third Baratheon child. Off, which is, it plays into Margarine Tyrell, and how margarine was basically sold like a stick of margarine in order to help like garner support with Renly and move up the social ladder. But in this case, it's the opposite. How things were. Like margarine is trying to make the best of a bad situation, and Myrcella doesn't even realize it, which again comes into play later on. And of course Tyrion tells each of those guys, like, this is what I think one of the reasons probably why, because you've told me that Clash of Kings, which is a better name for this season than calling this a Game of Thrones, even though they're all playing for the throne, all of the kings are clashing. So it makes sense to call the series A Song of Ice and Fire, but whatever. It's fine.
100% agree.
It's
100%
fine.
agree. Clash of Kings was the perfect title. And yeah, because they say when kings clash, the world trembles, or the earth trembles. And yeah, it's anyway, I've definitely got a little bit more to say on that.
But basically, Tyrion is trying to figure out who the mole is, and he finds out that it's Grandmaster
Dumbledore.
Yeah, it's the worst Grand Maester ever, because Dumbledore is the worst headmaster ever, even though they keep saying that he's great. Grandmaster Pycelle. I was serving the Lannisters. I thought your job was to serve the realm. So.
Hey up. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, again, it draws an interesting... the thing I found the most interesting is Viserys saying that he serves the realm, which so far still hasn't been proven false. Middlefinger only cares about himself. And as we see, which is proved true. And Grand Maester Pycelle probably only cares about himself, or he just cares about Damani. So, I don't know.
We've got two left.
Yes.
We got Theon, and then we've got Arya.
Let's do Arya first.
Okay. We'll talk about Mulan. Because So I'm thinking now, by the way, that Arya is George R. R. Martin's chameleon Disney princess. She is now Mulan.
Okay.
She is taking the role of a boy to go to the Castle Black, to join the Night's Watch. Really, they're going to drop her off at Winterfell on the way there. And in a nutshell, so it very different from the books, but you have to make certain compromises for a television show. Totally understandable. So, they go to different towns. They're going through the forest. They can't use the King's Road because it's being watched, and they're already getting hunted by the Lannisters trying to get Gendry. And they're moving along through. Right. This is in the books. They're moving along through, and this. I don't know if this is really talked about in the show. In the show, they only know that King's Landing is starving, which in the books is a pretty big deal. Like, that's a really common thread. And again, all the Tyrion scenes, all the King's Landing scenes, these things I feel like they're missing, because in the book, they're like, every single scene, those people are hungry. Every single scene. That. And here's where it comes down to. War is ravaging that realm. It is just destroying everything. It's uprooting everybody's lives. And in the books, you see it through the eyes of Arya. She's the only one who's really traveling. And as she's traveling along, she sees burned, scorched land everywhere they go. The Lannisters are just burning everything. And that's probably how it was back in medieval times during medieval wars, is they would put everything to the torch. And reading it was very sobering. It was very somber. It was like, oh my God, like all these towns are just completely deserted and everything around is just burned. There's nothing there. No fields, no food, no animals. Everything is just completely torched. And it's it's very grim. The grim dark, right? There it is.
Right.
Very, very grim.
Right.
Everything is burned and just destroyed. They can't really find anywhere to go. They go to abandoned towns. But everything is just scorched. And it was really hard kind of reading those scenes. So in the books, they go to Heron Town. It's deserted. They keep going forward. Then they reach this holdfast. And I didn't really know what a holdfast was, but apparently it's just like a small fortification.
Okay.
So George R. R. Martin, I believe he just is really interested. He's probably a historian, loves medieval times, and he set up this scene pretty well. They come to this full holdfast, and it's by a farm. So they actually have some food. They were able to scrounge up something to eat. But in this little fortification, they're exploring it. There's an underground passage. There's there's like a wall, and then there's heights that you can go. And so they explore it. And then I think in another chapter, then they start getting attacked. Or it might be the same chapter. They start getting attacked. Mm-hmm. And she's on the roof. She's looking down. And she sees the Lannister men and the horses starting to climb over the hill. So she sees them all coming. She doesn't know what's going on with Yoren. She doesn't know what's going on with other people. She's on the roof. And the Lannister men are using grappling hooks, and they're climbing the walls. And Arya is running over on the roof. And she and Hot Pie are flinging the people off. They're getting rid of the grappling hooks, so people are falling to their death. And then there's a couple of people that made it on top of the wall. Arya takes out her sword, runs after them, and yells, "For Winterfell!" She is, of course, accompanied by Hot Pie, who yells, "Hot Pie!"
Does Hot Pie also have a sword?
He does. Everybody got armed. And fans love that scene. I was watching later on some of the inside the episode behind the scenes stuff, or maybe it was something I read. And I think the director or the writers, they're fans of the books, and they were so sad they couldn't put the Hot Pie battle cry in the show. They were like, we wanted to do it so bad, but we just couldn't. So that's what happens there. And then a fire breaks out because they've just put everything to the torch. So they go down the underground passage and they're about to leave and run away. And then Arya looks back and she sees the three caged. And she's like, she has a decision to make. And that's where good stories happen.
Right.
When you have a decision to make.
Right.
She could keep running off. She might be fine. But she doesn't do that. She grabs an axe, she goes back, and she saves those criminals who probably were going to die because they were horrible criminals. But she goes back and she saves them. And that is a decision. That is a huge decision that a character makes. And she just drops the axe, she runs, and the fire around her burns down. Like the whole farm around her burns down, and she's kind of trapped. She gets out. Spoiler alert, she gets out. She's fine.
Right.
But she risks her life to save the three of them. And she almost died. Like, she almost got totally surrounded.
Yeah.
So, also, Yorn is different in the books. He's the Night's Watchman who's taking them north. He doesn't have a monologue in the books. He doesn't tell her about the litany or the prayer. That's not in there. That was all Arya's doing. She figured that out. She did it on her own. I'll bring that up a little bit later on.
Wait, refresh my memory about the litany and the prayer.
Yeah, so Yorn tells a story about how he was wronged in the past by this fellow whose name is, I believe, Willem. You're not sure if it's Willem de Friend or Willem Dafoe. You're not
of
really
course
too
not.
sure.
He's something of a soldier himself. Anyway.
Yes, I decided to wrong Yoren.
I was the one who wronged Yaren.
And so every night, Yorn would say his name like a hit list. Willem.
Oh,
and then,
okay.
Willem died. And so now Arya, before she goes to sleep at night, she says the names of those that she wants to kill. Oh, actually, I have the note in my book. In my point of view from reading the book, Arya's character starts to devalue lives.
Okay.
She doesn't value life. And it's just something that I've kind of saw happen. Like, I noticed it early on, and then as I read it, it just kept reinforcing it. Like, ooh, because George R. R. Martin, all of his characters have a lesson that they need to learn. And her lesson, I figured that out, was she needs to value life. And right now, she just is like, just kill him. Kill them all. Who cares, right? Just kill them dead. I want them all dead. She does not value life.
Okay.
So, anyways, there's my Arya monologue. And that's all I got to say on that. It was a lot, though.
No, that's good. I was wondering how they were going to get Gendry out of it alive, and I thought that the way that they did it was interesting, where it's like someone else picked up his helmet and the soldiers knew to kill the person based off of the helmet. I don't know if that was in the book, but
no,
okay.
They were all just captured. They were all captured. They didn't know who was who.
Yeah, so I don't know why they did that in the show, but I was like, oh, okay, I can see where this is going, and he's gonna end up dying, and he did. But I thought it was a clever way. Yep, I thought it was a clever way of getting Gendry out of that situation. And then one of the people that she rescues was like that guy who was talking to her, who was like, I can tell
a man can fight.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see if that plays anything into it as well. My observation for that is, I feel like the show has this idea that, like, and maybe this is a bad way of putting it when I look at the show, but like, I wrote it down and it sounded bad, and it still sounds kind of bad when I'm reading over it, but like, I have this feeling that the writer, like, if they didn't have to do court stuff, and again, I have no basis for this really, except for what I see when I watch the show. If it
not
wasn't
unwordsmithed. All right, let's hear it.
if the characters in court, like the women in court, didn't have a point in the book, I feel like most of the writing would avoid it. Because I feel like they look down, especially, I guess, specifically about watching like the behind the episodes, and how much they love Brienne of Tarth and how much they love Arya. If they're not like women as fighters, and it might also apply to like Bran, because I find his court stuff really interesting, like how he has to run Winterfell when Rob's gone. But if the women want to live the life of being in court, I feel like the writers devalue that or look down on it because they don't seem to pay much attention or seem to like them very much. Like they try and get into their story and get out of it as quickly as possible so they can then move on to other characters to move the needle. That's my hot take from this episode, because we were talking about Arya and how Arya had a lot that she had to do in this episode and a lot that moved in her story because they have to get her moving somewhere else. Whereas they'll just like break in on Sansa and she doesn't do anything, or they'll break in on Catelyn and like she's just like literally just like a body in the room for the most part on this episode. So
I made a note. We'll see if it continues through the show.
Yeah, we'll see if it does continue. Let's go to the Iron Islands with your favorite half smirking Theon.
No, lame smile.
I'm not a stock boy. You're the ones who sold me. That was this episode, right? Where he was like, why do you think so lowly of me, father? You're the one who sold me. And
That's the episode, yeah.
Again, this is also, I don't know if this happens in the book, but Theon is put to a choice. He can either tell Robb and align with the Starks, or he can, like, and I think this comes from a very real place. He can go with his family and live up to what he thinks is a family value, for lack of a better word. So he has a choice. He can either tell Robb of the attack, or he can get back in good with his father. And I think it's an interesting thing because he hasn't lived with his father for most of his life at this point. At this point, he's lived in Winterfell more than he's lived on the Iron Islands. But he feels this huge sense of duty to do his father's bidding because they're family. And so I think like Theon is being pushed into the direction of like, what is your true family? Even if you have that sort of like after school special idea that like your family is what you make of it and not necessarily who your blood is. But Theon still ends up going in the direction of it's who you make it, not who your blood is. But I feel like I need to fulfill the destiny with the blood with my father. And also maybe I want to be king. What do you think?
I think you shouldn't have stolen that dog from John Wick. That's right. The scene where he's writing the letter to Robb, and the entire scene is black, and except for the writing desk and his note to Robb about, "Hey, Robb, my father's coming. It's not working out here." So there we go. Right? Remember, Robb sent Catelyn to to Renly to get support there, and he sent Theon to the Pikes to get support there. Right? How's that looking, Robb? How'd that go so far? And Catelyn did say you can't trust him. And anyways, that note where he's writing Robb and he's looking at it and you're like, what's he going to do? What is he going to do? I thought that was just set up so well, where it made you kind of guess all the way up to the end when he burned the letter.
Yeah.
That was really good.
So
I wish I could give better analysis from the books about his psychology in that situation, but I don't know. Maybe I just read through his chapters just to get through them. Can't remember.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
I wasn't really, but you appreciate it, and I thought it was really powerfully done. I watched a little bit about the anatomy of a scene where they poured the water over Theon's head like he was being rebirthed again. So he kind of left all of his Stark past aside. Now he's completely committed to being a Greyjoy. They really liked that scene. The showrunners did, and as I was watching it, I didn't really care. But
So in the book, was that choice put to him though? Was it like he could either write to Robb, or he goes with his blood? Do you remember if that was like a choice that was important in the book, or was that manufactured for the show?
No, it was incredibly important. What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? But I think that the motivation for the character was different. In the show, it was, I'm going to do it for my blood. But in the book, it was more like, everybody where I come from is laughing at me. Like, this is something that my childhood dreams were, the Iron Men, being made of the Ironborn, doing all that stuff. We do this, we do that. That's what we do. And now he's actually home. And they all look down on him. And so it's more like, I'm going to prove myself to you guys. I'm going to make you all laughing at me. No, can't have that.
Okay.
So it was more from that instead of like, and it probably is still from the show also, but it wasn't like he was turning his back on a friend. It was more like to prove people wrong. That was the psychology that I got, but I'm not too. I would have to reread his whole story arc.
Okay, that's fine.
Which is 100 pages, but I could just skip to his chapters and, and try to get a feel for it.
So I guess, and my other question is, do you like the actor they chose to be Theon? We've spent a lot of time on this episode. I'm sorry, but
we did.
We'll get through this part, this last part pretty quickly. Do you like the actor who they chose as Theon?
He's really good in showing the fighting emotions in him. So to get what they wanted to get across, I thought they chose a good actor.
I think they chose a good actor. I just don't like. I think he's too, and maybe he is whiny in the book, but I feel like you'd want to cast someone who isn't supposed to be whiny to kind of make him maybe a little bit more faux sympathetic instead of like so easy to just. And you would know better than me, but like he seems like he's such a punching bag in the show from the beginning of the show that by the time he gets to this point, I'm like, I get it. You're a punching bag. You're a snot-nosed like little kid who's trying to live up to. I don't know. I maybe I'm just like way off base.
No, that's the way it is in the books as well. He is kind of a punching bag.
He's just supposed to be a punching
at
bag.
This part.
Okay.
At this part of the story, yeah.
I know at this.
He comes home and he's totally humiliated. He's completely
No.
humiliated.
I know at this point of the story he is, but like, should he always have been like even in a Game of Thrones, the first season, like you're very quickly aware that he's not like some. Like just looking at him in the first season, you're like, oh, he looks kind of. I don't know. He's not nearly as handsome as the Stark boys, and he's like we introduced really early on that like, oh, he's not one of the Stark boys. He's he's different. He's an outsider. He's treated like as lesser class. Roz makes fun of him, like no one has any respect for him in Winterfell, and it's like and he kind of looks like he's not very like he doesn't take care of himself. I don't know. I just like the actor does a good job, but like anytime it gets to him, I'm just like, you're annoying. You're just like you're just annoying. And like guess what? He was annoying in John Wick too. Like
I think I know why. I think I know why we get that feeling. I really do.
Why?
Because well, first of all, he's a complete outsider in Winterfell. He's an outsider. People don't trust him because of what his father did. And now he's learning all their secrets and like, what are we gonna do about this? But the reason, in my opinion, why I think you feel that way is you see all these other characters go on and make big decisions, make good choices, do this, and be strong. And then you see him be weak. And that might be why you're just like, oh,
right. So
weak.
So I feel like you should choose an actor who doesn't look like they would make bad decisions. Does that make sense where I'm coming from? Like, you cast again, like, does that make any sense? Like, maybe it's just inherent in the way the character is, but like he already looks kind of slimy. I don't know. That's a terrible way of putting it, but like, I don't know.
That's a good way.
I just like, there's a picture that you sent me from the board game of Game of Thrones where like they make Theon look like a knight of the round table, like a clean shaven, strong jawed, straight haired, I guess, knight of the round table, like, to frame it terribly. But like the Theon we get is like just like a spoiled, annoyed little kid, and like maybe that's what he's supposed to be. But
actually, yeah, I'm gonna defend him a little bit here.
Okay.
The feeling that you're getting from him is exactly the feeling you.
So
should
he's
be
basically
getting from
supposed to be Anakin Skywalker in episode 2. Like that's.
They probably could have hired the same actor and gotten the same thing across.
I would have loved that. It's just like I killed all of them. I killed all the Starks. Not just the men, but the women and the children.
The women's.
I hate snow. It's
You're
coarse
beautiful.
And wet, and it gets
Sand.
everywhere. It's nothing like
snow.
the ocean. I know, snow, because he'd be in Winterfell, and he'd hate being in the snow.
That's right.
Come on! My reference, come on.
Done.
Okay, fair enough. I just remember that like I was watching John Wick, and someone was like, "Oh, hey, he's playing another shitty character, who's like the punchline of everything," and I was like, all right, I did not remember Theon being the punchline of everything, but okay.
Well, he kind of is.
I mean, well, especially as far as you are now, he definitely is. I guess I should ask where. No, I don't want to know.
No.
I once you get to A Dance of Dragons, then I'll know where you're at. But this middle section's gonna get a little murky. I know some of the stuff that happens and some other stuff that doesn't. So I agree with you also. Like, I think that the baptism scene is a good scene to end it on. And yes, I understand that it's like, oh, he's fully committed here. It's like, again, it's filmmaking shorthand. Like, you show him do this thing that shows that he has turned a page, that he's turned the corner. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But we're also kind of like, we understand that. As viewers of the show, that is the impression you're supposed to get, and that registers in your brain. So I didn't think it was terrible. It was just like, because I'll be honest, from what I know about the series, I am 100% certain that Theon is going to make a lot more terrible decisions. So
you're probably not wrong.
The only other notes I had, I don't have any other notes. You have anything else you want to say about that episode?
No, we got to all of my takes, and yeah, I'm good. I mean, the only other episode I have a ton of notes on are episode 6.
Okay.
So,
well,
I'm good to turn the page.
Let's do 204. The Garden of Bones.
Garden of Bones, yes. And maybe we should start with the Garden of Bones.
Okay.
So, yes, Daenerys and company arrive at the gates of Qarth. And they're stuck outside. Qarth?
Qarth.
But they do gain admittance finally by Jaro Jean Daxos. I don't know the actor's name, but I've seen him in things, and he's a very good actor.
Yeah, it's Nonzo Ananzi. He's in a lot of Kenneth Branagh movies. He's in Cinderella, the 2015 Cinderella. He plays as Robb Stark's like confidant in that, because Rob Stark's in the 2015 Cinderella movie.
Because of course he is.
He's played the bad guy in some things, but he's also just so generally likable as an actor that he tends to play the good guy, which makes me nervous because, Lucas, I know you know more. So before I get committed to him being a decent person, should I be committed to him for being a decent-ish person?
I am not going to tell you.
I hate you.
I'm going to let you you experience it the way a viewer would experience it.
Was he well cast?
For once, I have one spoiler on you.
Was he well cast?
Depends how he acts. I know that sounds terrible. I know that's a horrible answer. But things develop later on where I can tell you that.
Okay. So
he has this big vault, which isn't in the books either, by the way. But it is. Here's a question to you, and you can take it through the rest of the episodes that we're going to cover. Do you think that he is flirting with Daenerys enough?
I am okay with it because it feels like a business transaction kind of thing.
Perfect. Then he's getting it across.
Yeah, he's not like in love with her. He's just like using her for prestige to further his own cause, a mutual beneficial thing. He furthers his cause, she furthers hers.
That is exactly how it should come across.
Okay.
So he is doing a good job. He's a good actor. He's doing a good job. And well cast.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
So I will say, out of the writers... Out of the writers, so far, I think Vanessa Taylor has been my favorite. But anyway, aside from George R.R. Martin on episode 8. Anyway, so go ahead and continue on with Outside Koth.
Outside Koth. Yeah, they're sound terrible. It was a lot of filler. Very different from the books. In the books, you were introduced. Yeah. This whole thing wasn't really in there. So Daenerys sends out her blood riders out, and all three come back, but only one of them comes back with Zarozan Doxos. Her name is Quaith or Kaith. She's a Shadowbinder from Ashai. You barely see her in a scene. And also, she brings back Pyat Pri, who is a warlock. Everybody remembers him because he's the bald guy with the blue lips.
Okay. Is that how he's described in the book as well?
Yep, the blue lips are in there. And he's very weird, and he's a warlock. So that's... Does he... And then they just go to Karth. And that's it. And they're in Karth. So this whole like scene in front of the gates is like... I don't know, it's weird because I'm reading the books and I'm just watching the show going like, this is filler.
Okay, so do you remember the Dungeons and Dragons film from 2000?
I do, because I liked it.
Do you remember that there's a bald guy with blue lips in that movie who is Jeremy Irons' second in command?
That's right. Don't tell me.
Oh, I don't know his name.
Is it the same actor?
No.
Oh, okay.
Probably not.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to say I
would have lost my mind.
I'm wondering if one of the production designers or the writer of the movie was reading Game of Thrones at the time and was like, "Ooh, we need to do that." Because good Lord, I still remember that guy. Anyway. All right, so
no,
yeah,
that's really all I have to say about Daenerys' storyline for this episode. It's like, that's it.
I mean, I think
they get into Karth. Okay.
I think it's interesting. Like, I think they just want to build tension. I can see why you'd say it's like a filler. I think they just want to build tension and show, again, reinforce the idea of like her as like having nothing but also doing everything. So that's it. We can move on.
And being very desperate. But you know, when I think about these filler scenes, this is what bothers me. Is that this does bother me. When you get to these filler scenes, And you look at that scene, and you look at the production value that went into that scene, where you see the gates and
yeah,
everything.
that's
I know,
true.
You got to show it off. But I feel like that budget and that time in the episode could be used in other places.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Fair enough.
And that's one that I wouldn't do. Just you could CG it or something. I don't know.
Well, they probably did, but also they have all of those actors out shooting in the desert because Game of Thrones shoots in a bunch of different locations. You have all those actors shooting in the desert. You want to get your money's worth. The writers wrote this scene, and I've been in a situation where it's like you look at it and it's like, this is a waste of our resources, but we have to film it because it's in the script. Doesn't make any sense why it is. There's logistically, it'd be better if we just move this somewhere else, but they wrote it here, and we've got to do it. Those things happen. It sucks, but that's all. Oh, I guess they changed Zaro Zandoxos' character in this. Okay. I learned something that I didn't know by reading this. I should do more I should take more notes when I do these. I should go in and read the descriptions of the episodes on Wikipedia because they've got a lot of information. Moving on from Karth, I guess.
All right. Going now in the episode order-ish. We've got Robb. He attacks the Lannisters at night with Grey Wolf in Oxcross, which is a couple days east of, I think, Casterly Rock. And then you are also introduced to Talisa, which is a girl who is very clearly going to be Robb's love interest.
Was that clear in the book? It's clear in the show.
But was that in the show?
Was that clear in the book?
It's very different.
So can you talk about that a little?
I'll tell you about it.
Okay. All right.
Sure.
Well, wait. One more thing before you do. I don't know if you were going to say this. We are introduced, and I know a little bit about this, but I don't know. Maybe I'm saying too much. We're introduced.
Can I do it?
Go ahead.
We are introduced to Roose Bolton.
Why did you say it like that?
Because I wanted to.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say it like
Is
Roy
that who you're
Dotrice.
talk about?
Yeah, it is. I was gonna say it like Roy.
Yes.
I was gonna say like Roy Dotrice, and he goes, and Roose Bolton, Mr. Roose Bolton. So we are introduced to Lord Roose Bolton.
Lord of the Dreadfort.
He talks about flaying people.
Indeed.
Does that have any relevance with you at this point?
I don't know.
Okay.
Too much right now.
Okay.
So that might have to wait till I get to Dance of Dragons. But I thought that by saying his name like that, Roose Bolton, or whatever. I mean,
no, Roose Bolton. Who names their kid Roose? No, Moose Bolton. Anyway, Roose Bolton. Yeah. We're
Bruce Bolton.
Bruce. This is probably what people hate about us. All right. So yeah, we're introduced to Roose Bolton, and we're introduced to Robb's girlfriend.
Not in the books at all. No. Because Robb sends Caitlin away to go visit Renly. And Caitlin and Robb do not reunite until 25% of the way through Storm of Swords.
Okay.
So 25% of the way in book 2, they separate. Yeah. 25% of the way in book 2, they separate. 25% of the way through book 3, they reunite. So you get no Robb appearance since 25% of the way in book 2. Then he's just out of the story. Like, he's doing stuff. So Oxcross, that gets... Tywin knows about... Everybody knows about it. Because ravens are like the...
they're the
news
owls
feed on
of...
Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're totally the newsfeed, right? Everybody like just all of a sudden knows about this,
Right.
Yeah, so that's how it's delivered in the books. Is that the Ravens let you know that this is what's happening.
So wait, where are you getting this information? Like which character do you remember or is like getting this information?
Yeah, Tyrion gets it as Hand of the King. So you learn it. There's a lot of Tyrion stuff that they cut from the show. He's basically running things. Tyrion is running things, and that's. I consider book 2 to be Tyrion's book because he's running the show. He's totally running the show. He speaks with the king's voice, but the king is 13, so he's really doing everything. It's awesome, and he's thriving. This is his world of politics. He's doing tons of stuff, and I feel like that's completely missing from the show. I was very disappointed.
To be clear, I think the most interesting thing about the show are the Tyrion scenes, and they're clearly the scenes that are the most interesting in the show, which is why when you told me that A Clash of Kings was like, I couldn't put it down, I get it. I understand completely why it's probably more interesting and better. But we're still at Oxcross. So Tyrion's the one getting the information. So if you were reading the book and you saw this, all of this would just be like, what the heck? Like if you're at this point in the so we're about we'd be about a third of the way through the series. Well, 2/5 of the way through, so 20%. So
nice.
Would you, as a reader, having read 20% of A Clash of Kings, be like, "What is this?" Like with the stuff with with Talisa and everything, would you be like, "What the heck?"
No.
If you're reading Clash of Kings.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so with Talisa, this is a personal story, and they don't send ravens about people's personal lives.
Right, I know that. That's why I'm asking. This would just be like if you were a reader and then you watch this episode, you would be like, "What are they doing?" Right?
I would.
Okay.
Yes,
that's what I was. That's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to. Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
Got it.
Yeah, because like I was like, I was like, he's got a girlfriend. Which point of view character is this coming from? Is this the writers just taking liberties? And it's the writers taking liberties. So
it is, and I approve.
Okay. Because Richard Madden is a good actor.
Yes.
No, the scenes are good, and like I said, I think Vanessa Taylor is she writes 2 episodes of this chunk that we do, and I kind of liked both of them. So,
and from what I know in the books, it's clear that the writers they kind of know the actual books and the story's direction, so they know areas that they're allowed to take liberties with. And this is one that they are, and this is filler compared to the books. Yeah. But this is filler that I 100% approve of. I think this is I think it's really good.
Okay.
And I want to see where it goes. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But do you have anything more to say at Oxcross?
I do not.
Where do you want to go next?
Let's do let's do this one. Let's talk about Arya again, because it's the showrunner's favorite, obviously, but different writer.
What is Harrenhal?
Harrenhal is the land's biggest castle.
Is this where Tywin Lannister runs things from?
No, Tywin runs things from, I think, Casterly Rock, and then there's a place called Lannisport, which is around there. Okay. But right now he's on the march. He's at war, so he's there in the field. But Harrenhal is this big stronghold, and they have somebody else holding it. So, a little bit different in the books. Arya actually runs off with Hot Pie and Lemmy, and Lemmy's very slow, but they eventually, long story short, they get captured. But when you're reading, it's scary. You don't know what's going on. Like, you hear a footstep in the woods, and you're like, oh my god, are those soldiers taking me in? What's going on? And what happens is they get caught. and they get caught by the Mountain.
Okay.
And he's taking them all to Harrenhal. And as he's going there, he kills a villager a day. And the Tickler tortures them, and then they kill them. And in the show, this is also seen too, because one of them gets the whole hungry rat to the tummy by the Tickler. Mm-hmm. Well cast. My version of the Tickler had a bald head, but it's okay. And he was very much like ill in pain, but whatever. Very minor, like not a big deal whatsoever. But then Gendry gets chosen, which is awesome. And you know, Gendry's so brave, right? Like this is in the show, right? Gendry is super brave. He's sitting down, he's about to get the rat to the tummy, and he just looks up and is just incredibly brave. And you're just oh my gosh. In the show, yes. Okay. And you're just like, oh my gosh. You see Robert Baratheon in his eyes, just like brave and ready to take it. Although I gotta say, I bet you Robert, he probably would have been taunting the Tickler. Like,
that's
is
true.
That the best you could do using a rod? Why don't you use your own fingers, you bloody piss whore? You know, that's totally Rob. That's exactly what Robert would do. So,
right.
Just kind of a fun little callback there for, King Robert. May he rest in peace. You fat, drunk, horrible king.
No, we're definitely team Robert Baratheon here.
You totally are.
That's probably what we should have called the podcast. We should have just been like Team Robert Baratheon, even though he's not the best of people. But as we've seen throughout this show and we've talked about on this podcast, not all of them are. So wait, what happens to Gendry in the book? Because like in the show,
nothing happens to him in the book.
He's
not chosen to be tortured. He's not chosen to be killed. He's just going along with the show.
Okay.
Or he's just going along with the parade and then they finally get to Harrenhal, which is it. But I do want to bring this part up. Mm-hmm. The Mountain, and in the books, and then also in the show, they say the same thing. Where's the Brotherhood? Where's the Brotherhood? They're looking for this Brotherhood, and the Brotherhood is run by Beric Dondarrion, not that guy again, not Beric Dondarrion. Oh my gosh. Of course, nobody remembers who he is. He was the guy at the but like I kind of have.
Is he the swordsman for that trained Arya?
That was, oh my gosh, the name's on the tip of my tongue. Syriel Farrell.
That's right.
No, Beric Dondarrion has one appearance in the first season. Ned Stark says, all right, we need to get somebody to go out and catch the Mountain for burning the village. And then this like redhead guy with like a close-shaved beard comes up and he's just like, I'll do it. And that was Beric Dondarrion. That was his like big moment. No, I don't. My wife, like, I'm reading this stuff and my wife will say, I don't really know who you're talking about. There's so many characters, and like apparently minor characters have bigger roles in the books than the show. Like I get it. But still, Beric Dondarrion, I just think that name's hilarious. That's probably why I'm making such a big deal of it, because
well, also
who has a four-syllable last name?
But like again, like you're doing a show so that you can expand. I'm just gonna let it go. Everyone already knows where I'm going, and to be fair, we should be happy with what we got, with how many.
We get to see Harrenhal. What did you think about that shot of that huge castle? It was in mist. It was like the big black thing towering on the hill.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't remember what I thought when I saw it.
I thought it was awesome. I was like, wow, that thing's huge. I didn't know it was that huge. This is just giant monstrosity that's haunted. In the lore of the show, it's very haunted.
They don't really cover that in the episode. They call it the Ghost of Harrenhal, but I think they might have referenced it, but I don't remember.
One line. Right. You don't know it's haunted, but everybody knows it's haunted. Anyways, in the end, Tywin arrives and he puts them all to work.
Right.
And my wife loved that. She loved him coming in and just being like, what are you doing? Torturing, killing them? These are useful. Get to work. It's just like, man, Tywin just like right there. That was 100% Tywin Lannister.
Yes, it was Tywin, but it felt like a little bit too much of like an easy out. Like, maybe it's one of those drama TV things. I know I just like spent time being like, oh, Vanessa Taylor's a great writer, but like, so under the wheel shout out here, my friend Film Gabe.
Boom.
You might have said this too, and I think I said it on the first episode, but Film Gabe says this really well, that George R.R. Martin is really good at hiding his hand. And you start to get a feeling for when the other writers are putting something forward because they're not as good at it. And so like I think this might have been one where it's just like they have to find a way to get Gendry out of the situation because he's got to be kind of significant because they've spent so much time on him so far and they've done all of these things to get him out of very dangerous situations that he would normally be in a way where he's not like suffering grievous wounds or anything. No, general grievous wounds. Wounds. It seemed a little bit more contrived than it should that Tywin happened to stop by right at the moment, right before Gendry was going to get the rat eaten out of him. And again, I have Tywin questions, but in order to speed this up, I don't really have much to say about Harrenhal, except that I did not know why it was called the Ghost of Harrenhal. So.
Yeah. We got two more things on my docket. We got the Joffrey and the stuff in King's Landing, and then we got the stuff with Catelyn and Renly and Stannis.
Where do you want to go?
So those are the... let's do Catelyn.
Let's do it, because that'll be fast.
Sorry.
I think.
Catelyn
Stalkin.
Okay.
Yeah. What was that?
That was my my pronunciation versus the show's pronunciation and me just commenting on it without
groaning.
Yeah. So when Catelyn goes into Renly's thing, Renly's got 100,000 people with him. Now it's hard to defeat 100,000 people. Did you get that? Did you feel like the strength of Renly's army when you watched the show? Okay.
Yeah, I did because they reiterated it multiple times.
It would have been so hard to show 100,000 people. I'm just saying. They basically, in the books, they cleared a whole forest. There was like a big forest there. They just completely cleared it just so their camp could stay there.
I think the way that they shot the thing, and I don't know what kind of location it's supposed to take place in the book, but I think the way that they shot it, the location they chose, didn't reflect it. So, like, okay, to compare to Lord of the Rings, in Return of the King, they have the camp of all of the bannermen for the Rohirrim have been called, and they have a shot where Theoden overlooks his army because he's on significantly higher ground. And you get a sense of how big his army is based off of, one, how many people... Gambling says showed up, and then two, by having a visual, even if it's just a digital visual. And I know it's cheaper to do stuff in Massive, which is the program they use. It has to be cheaper to replicate that or create a map painting of a backdrop like that. But if you shoot it on a location where you don't have any sort of like plane or parallax or anything like that, or perspective, then it's a lot harder to convey that without just outright saying it. But I did get the feeling that there were a lot of people there, and I thought that the show did a well enough job of reiterating over and over how many people he had for him and stating how that... So I will give the show, like, how the odds are in his favor. So I will give the show that. They might have done a bit better job on the next episode, in the very beginning of the next episode, but that's... Yeah.
How did you think the parley with Renly and Stannis That was pretty much accurate to the book, and from your film perspective, I was just wondering how well you thought that was shot and conveyed. I was riveted.
Yeah, it was a great scene. I mean, you let your actors do their job. That's why, like, a lot of people love the scenes between the best actors in the show, because they're just actors doing their job. I find Stannis... No, not Stannis. Yeah, I find Stannis annoying. Especially because I know what's going to happen to Renly on the next episode. It sucks, but I like Renly enough. I don't know if they do I don't know how they present him in the book, but it did seem like... I always go back to that scene in the first season where he's like, look, I would be a better king. And it's just like, screw it. Maybe he would be a better king. Like, he's showing that he's got kind of an aptitude for this. I kind of appreciate it. I like the way he's negotiating and wheeling and dealing. And I like that it comes to a counterpoint where it's just like Stannis is so obsessed with his own entitlement in this that it's, that he's blind to everything else. And yeah. So I thought it was a good scene. Yeah. I can't really recall a lot of specifics, which probably makes everything I just said like moot.
No.
But I do remember that. I thought it was good. Maybe not like anything that I truly remembered, but it was well done.
It was super well done.
Yeah, because I do have a note that I liked the scenes of the armies meeting, so I did like that.
It was a great scene. Just well done. That was one of those scenes that they showed in the trailer for season 2, and I remember when I saw that scene in the trailer, I jumped up. I was like, "Oh my god, it's be so cool to see it."
Yeah,
and then it was great. That was like really just well shot. I like the lighting. I mean, everything about that scene was just really good. And why are we spending time on it in the podcast is because it was kind of a turning point in the episode, right? Turning point in the whole thing. You have these two armies fighting, and yeah, this is tense, and the show needs to do a good job on that scene, and I thought they met the challenge.
Yeah, especially because that, like, to me, I knew Renly had better odds than Stannis, and that Stannis couldn't win. So the show did set that up really well. And so You're thinking, well, why is Stannis so confident? Something bad is probably going to happen, isn't it? What's going to happen? And that leads
What's going to happen? Last scene of the episode.
Before we do that, I had forgotten about this, but Littlefinger talks about the siege on King's Landing with Renly, and he then starts talking to Margaery, Margarine Tyrell, and he's like, "Oh, so you love him, Well, the people are talking about, and blah, 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 And she's just like, that's interesting. Are you married? Well, no, I'm not. Okay, then, butt out of my business. It's not your business. It's mine. And guess what? I get to do whatever I want. So, like, you know what? Like, yeah, you go, Margarine Tyrell. But it does also... and then Middlefinger meets with Caitlyn, and she's mad, and they Middlefinger brings back the body, the body of Neddard to
the bones of Neddard Stark.
The bones of Neddard Stark to Caitlyn. Like Tyrion decreed it, or like sent him that way.
I think it's in the appendix too. Like somebody is taking the bones, like Dead's bones north or something. It's just like a little tiny footnote.
Did
Harry ends. It's kind of cool.
What do you think of Middlefinger? Like, first off, accurate to the book. Secondly, do you like his character both in the book or do you like the way his character works in the book and in the show? So, how accurate is he to the book in this episode, if you can recall?
Okay, so there's too many Littlefinger scenes, period. But I love the actor, so it's like, God, there's too much of Middlefinger, but the actor's so good. I kind of wore out myself with that.
I think the actor's just fine. Why do you say that there's too many scenes?
Well, Littlefinger doesn't show up here in the books at all.
Okay.
He's completely absent from everything that's happening here.
Is there someone else who is there during this time that kind of serves a similar purpose? So all of this is just writers taking liberties?
It is.
Do you think the writers write him well?
That is really hard for me to say because Middlefinger is very much absent in the books, almost on purpose.
To
he
make
always
him
finds a way to leave. Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
He always finds a way to make himself leave King's Landing or leave this situation or leave there, and he's just there, and then he finds some excuse for some reason, and then he just kind of ducks out, and the readers just, from the character, like, oh, okay, whatever. Tyrion's really the only one who's like, this Littlefinger's very, very clever, very dangerous. I need to watch myself or be careful around him.
He is an asp. He is very dangerous.
He, where I'm at in Storm of Swords, he was completely blank the entire book. Okay. Finally, though, at the end, he makes his appearance.
Okay.
And I don't know. Do you want a brief little spoiler here?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not going to set the scene, but he does say a couple of lines, and he says that it's when you play a game, the other character, who I'm not going to mention yet, will say, "What game?" Littlefinger then says, "The only game that matters, the Game of Thrones." And that was in Storm of Swords at the end of the book, or towards the end. So my take on Littlefinger is that he does not want to be king. He wants to control the king.
Okay.
His character is absent in the books. My point of view is that he always wants to be in the shadows. That's where he feels he's most effective. He doesn't want to be the figurehead because he knows what happens to figureheads. And he just kind of doesn't want to be in the limelight, but he wants to have the power. And I'm kind of got that picture. And so because he's been so absent in a lot of scenes, I can't really give a good gauge on his scenes. And maybe that's why I feel there's too many of his scenes. And maybe that's why, I don't know, purists of the book would probably feel like his character talks too much, like Tyrion.
Honestly, I just find him really annoying. Like, anytime he's in the show, I don't think he's, he keeps trying to... Okay, here's an example. This is what made me think of it, because I had a note on there that Middlefinger's annoying. He comes in, Cersei's mad. I'm sympathetic. Then something turns, and then he puts on his I'm being sinister look and his I'm being sinister voice, and listen to how sinister I'm talking, and listen to how sinister I'm being. And I'm like, dude, you don't do anything! You're like, oh, but look these are the things I can do, and I will put them in motion. And it's like, no, stop. Just stop talking. All you do are veiled threats. All of those scenes with Varys and Middlefinger are just like, I'm threatening you. And Varys is just like,
I hate those scenes. I hate those scenes.
You can't threaten me with anything. So I that's why I was wondering, because I'm like, he's just really annoying. Maybe he's more sinister in the book. And the fact that you don't see him as much in the book means that you feel the effects of his actions, whereas in the show, he's just talking about what he's going to do. Talking about the effects of his actions. And then, hey, we're back in his brothel again, so we can see how much of a weird pervert he is. No. The actor is a fine actor. Middlefinger as a character is annoying in the show. My piece. That's seriously what it is. It's because every single time every single scene he's in is exactly the same, and it's exactly as flaccid as it could be.
Jotting it down, Middlefinger is annoying.
All right. This is going to be a long episode.
If that continues on.
So
it is.
We're gonna move quickly through. So at night, Davos, your boy Davos,
My boy,
I say
Knight, yeah.
Again, I say Davos like that because that's how Roy Detrice says it. He goes Davos anytime it's a Davos chapter, so I always say it Davos. All right.
I now think the actor for Davos should have played Stannis.
Why?
Because the actor for Davos looks like a hard man.
He does look.
Not.
No, the guy for
That's it.
Stannis looks
That's
like a
my only
creep.
Exactly. And Stannis is supposed to be hard. Davos respects Stannis because he delivers the justice, and he's very just and very wise, and he thinks Stannis would be a great king. And I don't know,
and
so much
that's
about this actor for Stannis.
Yeah, because he's okay, and that gets into like because he doesn't look like the guy who they got to play Stannis looks like the king of an evil empire, and not the king.
He does.
So I can understand that. So
Shadow creature.
So Melisandre's pregnant, and the first thing I thought, and I even wrote it down, the first thing I thought was like, how much time has passed? Because how long was Melisandre pregnant? So and then
not 9 months.
And then she reveals herself, and then she births out this like shadow being, and I was just like, what am I watching here? Like, also I don't know if it happened in the book. Did she actually ask him like, you don't like me, do you, Davos? Did she actually do that in the book? Please tell me she didn't.
I'll say she does.
Oh my, why?
I think she does.
It's such a bad cliche. It's like the beginning of Lockout, which is a terrible movie where it's like, you don't like me, do you, Snow? And he's like, I don't like anyone. Yeah, it's like...
yeah. We'll talk more about the shadow creature, I think, next episode.
Okay. Let's move over to King's Landing.
Yes. Really quick. Lancel is Tyrion's mole.
Yes. How did you find that out in the book? How'd you find out that he was...
Same way.
Okay, so we know in the show because of a scene earlier where we get to see a lot of Lancel's Lannister, basically his butt. In the show, we saw that at the end of the first season.
You know, I think Varys probably tells Tyrion. This is missed in the show. Varys and Tyrion work together so well. It's a buddy cop flick. They are buddy cops this whole time.
They allude to it.
They
alluded to it last episode.
They are kind of friends, but then they say a line. They're like, I'm not sure if like you're my best friend or my worst enemy. And the other one says, I feel the same way about you. It's just like so. And it's pretty good. They work together in like a lot of different things. But Lancel is Tyrion's mole, and then you have this weird scene of Joffrey attacking Horse, or having the Horse attack each other. That was not in the books. I kind of wonder if that was in there to make him be more of a monster than he is. Like maybe they need to show him be worse or something. I'm not quite sure. I didn't really care for that scene. I thought that was kind of like it's a little bit over the top. And I felt bad for the actor. The actor for Joffrey is apparently an amazing, cool person. And yet he's in that room and he's got to act like, harder. Just props to him for, getting
this whole
that emotion.
Like, this whole show, it's going to be a lot of that because, like, the guy who plays as Joffrey, he's so good. You buy it so much that he's such a bad, masochistic guy. But hey, don't forget, never forget, Batman gave him a doohickey in Batman Begins, and because of that, he will always be a bit of a good guy to me. Not Joffrey. Joffrey's terrible, but the actor,
yes,
he went out and said, "It's you, isn't it?" And we all know who you was, even though he probably should have said, "You're Batman, aren't you?" But anyway, that's a David S. Goyer thing. Yeah, that scene. What I feel like they want to make sure you know that he's not redeemable, and I'm guessing in the book they do enough of their homework where at least early enough on that he's not redeemable. I think in the show they started worrying that they're making him look too soft, and so they needed to have a scene that showed how much, one, he's a spoiled brat, two, he's a sadist. And I think this scene gets it across well, kind of like the scenes in the brothel with Tyrion, where it's like they need to make sure he looks like a pervert. But yeah, I could have definitely done without that scene.
I could have too. That was not. I guess there was no more. There that would have been the only nudity in the episode, and I guess they have to do it. So.
They had to put Roz in the episode somehow because they created
there it
her.
is. Oh like, God, Roz. Yeah.
And to be clear, it's not a slight against the actress. I just don't understand why they keep putting this character in.
I'm with you. No, the actress is awesome. She
does a great job. But the character doesn't
like her scenes.
Like they're just
right.
not. Yeah.
And in the book, a lot of the Joffrey stuff comes from Sansa's point of view.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but what actually happens to Sansa? Don't you think that's enough to show how much of a monster Joffrey is?
I would have thought.
And Sansa looks at Joffrey, and Joffrey can turn on the charm. He can turn on the charm when he wants, and sometimes he's great. Sometimes he's a really good person, and sometimes he's this horrible monster. And I feel like that's extremely realistic for people in general. Yeah. Sometimes you're looking at this person like, man, he's just a great person. Wow, I really respect him. Oh man, he's so charming. And then boom, turn the corner and oof, watch out. The person's completely different, and people are multifaceted, and I really disagree. Now that we're talking about it, I really disagree with that scene. I think they should have kept Joffrey to be more of a you're not quite sure, like redeemable, because that's how people are.
This show is a little bit too obsessed with making sure the characters are painted in either black or gray. Okay, that sounded bad, but like they always say like black or white characters, but it feels like they're like, we want the characters to either be like very evil or like maybe they do an evil deed now and then, but they're generally decent people. And you lose a lot of the nuance, because I think that scene does make you lose all of the nuance for Joffrey. I think also not having any scenes that show him being charming stacks the deck against him, because I think you hate Joffrey when you read the book, I'm guessing. But when you watch the show, he is just the epitome of evil, is the impression I got from everyone I know who has watched the show. They're just like, Joffrey is the equivalent to evil incarnate, and he's a spoiled little brat. So I think they need more scenes of him being charming, but of course they're not going to have them, because they can't have that much nuance in the show, or else people are going to be like, oh, but Joffrey wasn't that bad. I don't know. I do agree, though. The scene where he publicly beats and starts to disrobe Sansa in front of everyone should be enough to tell you that he's not a good person, in addition to like him being the one to kill all of Robert's bastards. Why is it him? Why not Cersei?
Him. No, Cersei was the one who ordered the code red.
So but I did like I forgot what Bronn did. I remember because I have a note in here that I love the Hound, because it does seem like the Hound is kind of like the unofficial guardian angel of Sansa. And I remember that from the first book where she started looking at him from a different light. And so I'm glad to see that line carry through. But the Sansa, Joffrey, Tyrion scene, and Tyrion steps in, and I feel like Tyrion sometimes, and this is the impression I get in the show based off of what we've seen, I feel like Tyrion secretly wishes he were a Stark, is the impression I get. Because he went to the wall with Jon Snow, he helped boost Jon Snow's confidence, he really enjoyed his time in Winterfell in the show, he gave Bran the riding apparatus, and he's now kind of looking after Sansa and making sure that she's not spoiled goods. Granted, he's doing it because she's the only thing that they have. She's the main like trade property to get Jaime back. but it's like it's also probably just Peter Dinklage being very charming and very charismatic and being very like he's able to express that like that sort of like protective nature. I don't know.
It's cool that you said that because that's exactly it. He doesn't want to be a Stark, but he loves them. He really likes the Starks and he really respects them. And part of him hates this war with Robb. Just like, man, because they're really good. And when Robb wins, Tyrion's not like, oh darn. He's kind of like, well, you know, he's like, yeah.
That's interesting because like I had to really fight to find that conclusion. So now I kind of want to go again. I kind of want to go back and read the books and like get this sense from the books of what's going on. That's kind of being lost in translation.
It's well worth reading. It would be hard to get this in a TV show or even a movie. Tyrion's sort of inner workings and his thoughts on how he's gonna like do the political maneuvering. It'd be hard to get that across in a show.
Yeah, partially, but like one thing they could do is like they could have, and again, you know, they probably had a bunch of these scenes and they cut it because it doesn't move the story. But you have someone come in and he's like, you know, Tyrion or Hand, I have a letter from the front lines, and he, okay, then bring it over, and grabs it, opens it up, and looks at it, and smirks. And they put the letter down, and the camera zooms in on the letter, and the letter just says like another victory for Robb Stark, and boom, you have it there. Like you let Peter Dinklage like express like, he's like, you know, like, oh, that's another impressive thing, and like, but also let him convey that like he say something like, oh, these Dawn Starks are gonna win the bloody war. Sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be better if they did. You know, throwaway line like that, and all of a sudden, boom, you have like the conflict in him. But I digress because I got the feeling that he's protective of the Starks from what's going on in the show already. So maybe it's not necessary. Or
he totally is. There's a lot of scenes with Tyrion, and he's got the most POVs in Clash of Kings, and he's
the most interesting character to watch in this season.
He's constantly walking to his solar. He's walking to the Tower of the Hand. He's constantly getting reports and says like, "Okay, we'll do this, do this, do this. All right, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this." And that stuff doesn't really move the story or the plot along, but it does give you the sense of like the world, and it gives you a sense like this is a city, and oh, by the way, everybody in King's Landing is starving. Everybody hates the war, and just. You know, and Tyrion also thinks like, how does Littlefinger get all this coin? How does he get all this money? Like, just makes it come out of nowhere. Like, how does he do it? And it's very confusing. Like, nobody knows, but he's still just filling the coffers somehow. So I really do miss that part. I thought that there needed to be way more Tyrion scenes. I'm just saying. And not because I'm on the Peter Dinklage bandwagon. He's an incredible actor. But I'm saying that because he's got such a key role in this entire... In book 2. It's his book. It's completely his book, 100%. I got that from the feeling from the very beginning and as it went on.
Wow.
Yeah, obviously in the show they can't have Sansa be naked. That's what happens in the books. So they're probably... the thought came to me. They probably wanted out the Joffrey horror scene because he wasn't they couldn't show how cruel he was to Sansa in the episode because he completely disrobes her.
Yeah.
I got that impression. I got that
feeling.
impression. Yeah. So let's get rid of the Hada scene.
Yeah. We don't
I could have lived without that scene.
where he's carrying the crossbow and you're like, no.
But although he does shoot people. He does shoot people. He does go to the roof and he kills people with a crossbow.
I will say this. Okay, why don't you have that scene in there? 1. And 2, one thing that scene did make me think was it displayed his power in the sense that like he could do anything and there is no one who would be able to stop him. And that's, I think, why they had it, because like if you think about it, normally in a situation like that, you would think like, okay, well, there's got to be like a bouncer or there's got to be like a guard someone like that who could come in and stop it. And I remember watching that. I was like, there's no one who can stop this. Like, there's like no one would stand up to it. No one would do anything at it. And it also, yeah. So that was the one thing that it conveyed to me was like the power he had. So
I completely actually that had to have been the purpose of the scene. You're right, because what would the two women have done? They could have just said like, no, we're not going to do it. He's holding a cross.
You're dead.
Could kill them, and he's the king. Like you're either going to die or you're going to really mess up your friend.
I mean, to be fair, I think like if I were the friend, I would probably just take death at that point. Like, I don't know.
Knowing that's who your king is.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, I mean, and so you were talking about, okay. Do you have anything else you want to say about this? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. So Tyrion comes in with and the Hound's already in there. He gives Sansa the white cloak to cover herself. And you were mentioning the Bronn thing. That's because Bronn stands up to one of the Knights Guard, one of the King's
That's
Guard.
right. Mm-hmm.
And the King's Guard is Meryn Trant. He's the one that kills Syrio Forel. And it's the same actor. I love it when there's consistency. It was the same guy. I was like, yes. And you just knew it was Meryn Trant.
That's right. Yeah, and Bronn was also like
maybe not the name.
Yeah. Bronn was awesome in that scene. Do you have anything else to say about this episode?
I do not.
So the last thing I'll say is I thought that this particular episode had a very good flow to it, because it starts off at Oxcross, and every single scene, you didn't have to force the scene to move to another one. Each movement felt motivated based off of what had happened beforehand, at least for the first half of the episode. I remember that distinctly because like Oxcross happens and then you get to the King's Landing scene with Sansa and all that stuff. So I thought the flow of it was very good from a scripting and editing standpoint. And I think that's the only other thing I wanted to say about that episode.
And compare that with the next episode.
Guess who wrote the next episode, sir? So we're on episode 205. I'll give you one guess who wrote it.
I'm not gonna get it. Is it the showrunners?
It's the showrunners. It's D.B. Weiss and David Benioff.
Wait. Is Sansa in that episode? I'm looking through my notes. I don't see Sansa in that episode.
Sansa Watch.
No, Sansa Watch. Yep. Sansa Watch 2022. Wait, this show came out 2013. Yeah. No Sansa in that episode.
Was there any Bran in that episode? Or is this one going to be tough to? Is this one going to give us constipation, or was there some Bran?
There's no. Yeah, no Raisin Bran. Sorry.
Bran was in it. Receiving news that Torrhen's Square is under attack, Bran urges Sir Roderick to raise defenders. He tells Osha of his dreams featuring a three-eyed raven, but she deflects his inquiries. And right, with the really bad foreshadowing. It might be in the book, so maybe I'm not that bad foreshadowing. But the way they set it up seemed like really bad foreshadowing, where it's like we find out like maybe one or two scenes before that Theon is going to go rogue and do whatever he wants and attack Winterfell. And suddenly, Bran has this feeling that the ocean is going to cover Winterfell. Like, no shit! Sorry for cussing. Maybe I'll bleep it out, but like... Gee, I wonder what Bran's dreams mean now. Oh my god.
They hit us over the head with that giant scepter that poor Roz wielded. They really did. It was different in the books.
Okay. So, where do you want to start?
Let's start with Bran. First of all,
let's do it.
Bran.
By the way, I have a lot of notes on this episode.
Okay, all right.
So.
You're gonna run with this one then. I will react. You run it. I will react. So
let's start with Bran.
Does not have vision. Yeah, he does not have vision dreams. That's what I call them, vision dreams. There's this giant feast at Winterfell because the summer is coming to an end and the autumn is starting to happen. And so they're gathering all their food from the harvest and they're trying to gather everything together and get it saved for this giant years-long winter that's about to descend upon them. I don't know if that was really through there, but anyways, there's this giant feast and all the people from the north are
No, that
coming
didn't get
and paying
conveyed.
Respects. No, it did not. And at the very end, two people from the Neck, where you have Castle Greywatch, which nobody knows where it is. You can't find that castle. The Neck is this giant swamp. You have Jojen Reed and Mira Reed. Their father, Howland Reed, he went with Ned Stark to take down a couple of the Kingsguards, and he was one that came back alive. So the Reeds have this special bloodline power where they have green eyes, moss green eyes. And Jojen has the green dreams. And his dreams are all analogies, and they're all metaphors, and they're all prophecies, and they come true. Not Bran. Bran sees through Summer's eyes. He does not have the power of foresight, and if he does, he might not have it yet.
Okay.
But Jojen is the one who does that part. Sorry, Bran doesn't have that. Jojen does, and I'm thinking, where are these two characters? Where's Jojen Reed and Mira Reed? Where are they? Are they going to show up later? I don't know. Where are they?
I don't know.
But those are two characters that I liked, and actually they help train Bran to see through Summer's eyes. Granted, this is episode 5, halfway through the season. Maybe these two kids make an appearance later on?
Well, I don't know. They hate Bran. The showrunners hate Bran, so... to be fair...
That's all I got on that.
Well, to be fair, they could only shoot a certain amount of time with kids, so it's probably hard to get as much stuff as they need with Bran. However, they seem to get a lot of coverage of Arya every episode, so who am I to say? Just a quick note, Osha is we probably already said this, but like it bears repeating, I guess. Osha, which is not the same as the Occupation Safety Hazard Association, whatever it is. Osha is played by the person who plays as Tonks in the Harry Potter movies.
Oh, interesting.
So she still gets work, which is good because Tonks was completely like minimized in the Harry Potter movies, so at least she has regular work. I am nervous because and you said that Osha's supposed to be older, right?
I think so.
I think she's supposed to be like significantly older, which makes the next episode a little bit like okay, depending on how you originally see Osha. Like I'm under the impression that Osha's not supposed to be as attractive as she is. If you even find her attractive. Debatable. Okay. I don't know. I just go off the show, and the person they cast, I think, does a really good job of, if needing to be, can be attractive, but also if needing to be, can be, like ugly or not necessarily attractive. But yeah, so Bran has that vision. And again, like I said, the way that they have it ordered in the episode, maybe if they put it earlier in the episode, it wouldn't come off as so obvious. But you have to take into account where you're putting everything. And so then if you put it before Theon decides to make this change, all of a sudden it doesn't look like really bad, blatant foreshadowing. It looks like, wow, I rewatched this and they called it. That's crazy. So
that's a great point. And does Theon claim he's going to Winterfell? I think that is claimed that they are in the books. they're like, oh, let's go to Torrens Square and do that. And Theon doesn't have just one ship; he has a few. So like, all right, let's go to that, Torrens Square or whatever. And then Theon's like, no, we're not going to Torrens Square. Like, that's just a diversion. And then the reader's like, what's he gonna do? Because that's when the chapter ends. Because when you do the POV structure that George R.R. Martin does, you can insert things in there as like little clues, and then you can put the prophecy in there, and then you can be like, that was it. But I like the way that you framed it.
Wait, so just to be clear, because let's jump to the Iron Isles. Theon doesn't have a first mate who tells him that the people from the Iron Isles get orders, but then do whatever they want. That's what happened.
Tells him that.
So in the show, his first mate is like, yeah, we could set out there to pillage those farmlands, but we're not going to. And he's like, well, where are we going then? And he's like, oh, we're going to go to this small fort because it's undefended. And Theon's like, it is, isn't it? And then that'll force them to send people. And then we can get Winterfell. And the first mate is like, yeah, dummy. Yeah. That's what we were planning the whole time. But you're saying that in the book, Theon is like, no, we shouldn't go here. He's the one who makes the choice. Mother of God! This is what I'm talking about. Like, they just, by having the first mate, like, lead him to that decision, instead of him making the decision, and again, maybe I'm off because the way that you've presented it to me, it makes it sound like he was like, no, instead of doing this other thing we were supposed to do, no one has put breadcrumbs to guide me here. In the show, it's almost like the agency is kind of taken out of him, because even though he decides, like, he approves it, he puts the stamp on it, the paper is presented to him by someone else. In the book, it seems like he's presenting the paper. So you take the agency of that decision away from him, and all of a sudden he looks even more pitiful, useless. I don't know what the right word is.
Not a good decision. I'm with you. Yeah, Theon was the one who makes the call. He's the one that made the call. He's the one that made the plan. He made the call because he's thinking, nobody's looking up to me.
That's the other thing.
How can I make everybody respect me if I take Winterfell? That's why he did it. That was his motivation. That was led to by first name Dagmar, who's actually like not really bright. He loves Theon. He's just like, I'm an angry pirate guy. And
I'm loyal to you, Theon.
I'm this really clever like first mate. No. But But yeah, from what you were talking about, the character motivations, character thoughts, yeah, I totally understand your frustration. Just I do too.
Well, it reiterates, like, anyway, it's look, and again, to be fair to them, it's hard to know if it's going to go wrong until it's done, and then it's very easy for us to look back and change it. And there's always little things that are just like interpretation. You're interpreting the material of the text one way or another, and it could go in a million different directions. They have to commit to one course. Again, with that said, it's frustrating. I don't have anything more on the Iron Isles, so we can move on if you want to. Let's just do the most basic one. My first note here is bye-bye Renly.
Bye-bye, y'all!
Bye-bye, y'all!
All right, if you were to ask me, what king are you rooting for? What king do you think is going to win out in the end? I would have been like, yeah, Renly! Yeah!
Renly!
Me!
I guess this is what people... Oh, Roy Dotrice was Pyromancer Halling. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Bye-bye, Renly. God.
The actor was talking about shooting that scene. He was like, and then, that's the end of Renly. Like, oh, there goes my job on the show. Oh, well.
Could he have predicted it if he read the books? Probably.
I don't know how much they read.
I mean, like,
I know CEOs and a lot of people read. A lot of people read. I don't know if they read.
Do you think that they got a good person to play Renly?
I do.
Yeah, I do too. Especially because now that he's gone, it's like, I know he's gone. I'll look back on the show and watch it again, and I'll still be sad that he's gone.
Now that you're gone.
And then like Brienne gets sad and then like kills a bunch of people who come in and think that she killed him.
Caitlyn.
And pledges for Caitlyn, which I liked. I thought that was cool. I like the way that was handled, even though it was like very like. Maybe I'm just being really critical. Like because I like the scene, but I remember when she took a knee and like laid her sword down, I was like, there's no one here to do this, to like witness this ceremony. This is a lot of pomp and circumstance. And I guess part of it is also like the showmanship of it is fun, but it's also, but I was thinking in the back of my mind, like, there's a lot of showmanship here. It's just the two of them. Like there's got to be like an abridged version of this, of this kind of ceremony, right? But I'm guessing that's what happens in the book.
They're on the run, and
me giving them the benefit of the doubt. Lucas, nope, you shouldn't have. Here's some cold water.
No.
Okay.
That was well done. I thought that was pretty accurate from the book. But one thing about the show was that it's hard to interpret the text because it's from Caitlyn's point of view. She's hanging out with everybody, and then she says, and then a shadow moved in the room, and it looked like Stannis. Did the shadow demon look like Stannis?
No, it looked like Renly.
Oh, shadow demon.
Didn't it look like Renly? It's like Renly's shadow killing himself.
It was a shadow, but it was in the description, and it was very brief. I had to reread it like 2 or 3 times because I didn't really get what happened. It's kind of sad, but I had to read it 2 or 3 times because it was very confusing, which makes sense. If the character's confused, then the writing, then I couldn't really. Then the reader. Then
the reader should also be mysterious,
yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's what happened, and things happen so fast, but yeah, they were like, ooh, the shadow looked like Stannis. So that was my comment on that. I've got more comments, but I think about that stuff, but I might actually save that for the next podcast, depending on what happens in the last section of this season. So
I'm excited.
I've got another thing on the whole.
I see there's an episode called Blackwater, and I'm super excited about that. So yeah, but anyway,
I would be too, but.
But you know what happens?
What happens to the books? Yeah, and I'm scared to be let down. I just.
Oh, because it's so awesome. The stuff that happens in it is so awesome. Okay,
It's so awesome.
I'll say this: it's directed by a guy who has made action feature films, and my friends tell me that they tend to give him the big battle episodes because he knows how to handle all of it. So I'm hoping that we're going to see a marked improvement on battle and war scenes where they're like investing the money in. So anyway, I'm excited. I looked down the line of episodes, and I think like the 9th episode every season is an episode I'm going to be excited about, even if it's going to be tragic. Because I know,
that's true,
Lucas, that there's going to be some tragedy coming in season 3.
You do know. Yes,
I know that there's going to be some tragedy, and everyone who's listening to this knows, because I don't know how you avoided it, but you've already read The Red Wedding.
I did.
So you've read The Red Wedding.
Oh my gosh.
You've read The Red Wedding.
I just love everybody in my life. I love everybody in my life because nobody spoiled it for me. And
almost anyone who has heard the terms The Red Wedding knows that it's something that's very bad. And I'm looking forward to it in kind of a sad way. At the end of the day, they're just actors. They're not actually dying, is what I'll say about that. All right, so so Renly dies. Loras is mad. Middlefinger is there.
She's not in the books.
Margarine Tyrell is upset because now they have no claim and says that they should run.
I want to be the queen.
Yes. The famous line, I want to be the queen.
Right.
I want to be the queen. Anyway, so, let's see. I have this mainly. I don't have this broken up by. I have it when it happened in the episode. So, Brienne is cool. The writers like Brienne because she's not like every other girl. So they like her.
I've got 3 more points on this one.
Yes, go ahead.
We've got, all right, you got Tyrion, Jon, and Arya. Which one you want to hit?
I think Jon is going to be the fastest. So let's do Jon. We also have Dany.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
put a check mark that we already talked about it because not much to talk about.
Well, let's talk about Dany first in Qarth,
Okay.
because this is where they're in the city, and that's when we meet Blue Lips.
Payat Pre.
Right.
It's like about the most memorable thing. The Vault, which is new to the show. So
The Vault.
Interested to see where that goes.
And then also, I think Daenerys, Zaro asks Dany to marry him. Jorah argues. Jorah is like, you can't marry him. And she, confronts him about, I know you like me, but but then he's, dragon zoned. Got it, friend zoned.
Right.
He's dragon
That's
zoned.
right. Because he's 3 times her age, even in the books.
Even in the books, yeah. But 15.
But she's 15 in the books.
But
so.
15-year-olds like Henry Cavill, so it doesn't make a good match. But I can understand it because it's like a 15-year-old girl who's like Henry Cavill is hot. So sticking with that, Lucas, is it okay that I like Jorah Mormont? Please,
Yes, it's okay.
It's okay, right?
Yes.
He seems cool. And I feel like bad things are going to happen. Keep me updated.
He's cool.
Until something bad happens, I want to like Jorah Mormont. Okay?
Okay, this is a problem that I have with the show. Seriously. Everybody says, oh, the Game of Thrones, everybody dies. It's like... Just no. Just no.
Why do you say that? I mean, I agree.
Because not everybody dies, and people do die, and incredible things happen, but it's dumb to say everybody dies.
Yeah, although I did make that joke when I was attempting to do a little webtoon. I did make that joke of, you roll a dice, you die, except for if you get a 1, and then it goes to another table and you roll a dice and you die. So I did make that joke. So I understand where it comes from and why people say that. It is known as the series of he kills a lot of people, and there is a genuine fear. I was afraid Gendry was gonna die, and then a contrivance saved his life. So it's also weird because Dany turns down Zaro, and I felt like she turned him down pretty quickly. But according to the notes in Wikipedia, she talks to Jorah and then turns him down, and that's when they have that conversation about I know you like me, or Zaro presents that information to Dany, where he's like, "Don't you think that your man likes you?" or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's he proposes. Jorah says it's not good.
It's bad, and then
that's kind of how it happens. Yeah.
Do you think
there's
it's
a reason?
I'm guessing it'll be revealed later. Because, to me, it doesn't make it, it partially makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense.
Here's the reason.
Okay.
Here's the reason. When you marry, you get 1 possession of your husband, and your husband gets 1 possession of the wife.
And all Daenerys has are dragons.
That's what he wants. And that's why he wants to marry her. That's the only reason.
It. So I did.
We'll see if that's revealed in the show.
Okay. Now I do have a question. In the books, is there a reason Zorro is not sexually attracted? Is not attracted to Daenerys?
He's just not. It's to get a dragon. Okay. He could care less, and he pampers her. He totally pampers her, and like talks with her, but he never looks at her leeringly. He never looks at her as if he wants sex.
Okay,
that was very clear in the book. She's like, yeah, he's like very nice to me. He does all this stuff, and his intentions are known, but there's no like romance behind it. There's no like longing, no urges. Just yeah, it was very strange. And Daenerys doesn't know who she can trust. And now it's very awkward with Jorah Mormont. It's just, these things are all kind of piling up on her, and she cares about the dragons.
Okay. That is apparent. All right, so should we move on to Jon?
Let's do it.
Jon Snow. All right, so Jon...
You know nothing.
Yes, you know that now!
Of course.
The memes! So many memes!
I'm almost done with Storm of Swords.
Is that when it comes into play? Is that when it starts?
You know nothing,
Jon
Snow.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
All right. So, Jon Snow, there's like this dude who's like, we need to take scouts to find Mance Raider's camp.
Mance Raider.
Because he's a raider. What a great name, by the way. Mance Raider. Like, jeez.
I know.
So many good names.
He's a linebacker. He's a linebacker for sure.
So Mance Raider, they're gonna find Mance Raider. The two things I have on this is Jon wants to fight, and Sam is like, I will be a good steward and I will attend to the guys so that Jon, you can do what you always wanted to do and live the life of a ranger because you've killed them before. Like, they have a good justification there. So I liked that. The one thing about the inside the episode is that the guy who's like leading that pack is supposed to be some kind of like superstar, and like everyone looks up to him. And if I did not watch the inside the episode, I would have never gotten that. So F on you, D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. Should have introduced him earlier. You should have presented him in a way where he seemed like a rock star. Because when Jon's like, oh, I'll go with Sir, whatever his name was.
Quarren Halfhand.
Sir Gorin, and he's like, "Oh, I've been called a lot of things, but never a sir." I'm like, okay, he's just another former bad prisoner who's now a Night Watch guy. What a name, dude. Halfhand. Ugh, I don't want to know.
Quarren Halfhand.
Maybe he slapped the king and his hand fell off.
He does have half a hand, but he's a very good ranger. I did not picture him that old, but he probably was. He was. In my mind, he definitely has that crazy nose, but he's big. He's big, and he's hulky. He's huge. He's big and he's hulky with black hair.
I feel like I wonder if sometimes they box themselves into a corner by being like, it has to be a primarily British cast. Like, if they had just bit the bullet. You haven't seen the new Cyrano movie with Peter Dinklage, have you?
No.
So in that movie, they like, it's probably like a 2000s thing. It's similar to The Last Duel. They jettison any sort of like pretenses about having accents. So like Peter Dinklage talks with his American accent because he's American.
Oh, sweet. Yes.
And
yes, I'm so tired of these accents.
Haley Bennett has like a very like, her accent comes and goes at will. But they could have but see, if you don't have any like pretenses with that kind of thing, you're a lot more open. And again, show created by Americans, probably a primarily American writer room, a bunch of American directors, like, why? I don't know. It's probably like, I don't know. There's probably something wrong with me culturally where it's just like, oh, you want everything to be American? It's like, no, but like, you could get a huge linebacker of a person saying these lines if you don't worry about what kind of accent comes out of his mouth, is all I'm saying. Yeah.
Did you like the setting?
At the edge of the world?
The Fist of the Men. Fist of the First Men. That's the name of that giant hill.
Honestly, I don't remember the hill too much. I do like. I know a lot of these settings things. I
love it. I love it.
Well, I like that it feels like it's at the edge of the world. I really don't like Jon Snow's outfit. He looks like a he looks goofy to me because he's got like the big cloak and then like tiny little skinny arms that are sticking out, and then you look down at his boots and it's like he's got these giant boots, and I'm like, I know you guys are filming in winter, like you couldn't have given him a bit of a cooler looking outfit. Like, not cooler temperature-wise, but, you know, the production design doesn't let me down very often. The production design with his costume looks bad. Like, I think there's subtle things that I feel like they could have done to make him look not as comical. You know, it didn't occur to me, but, like, because Sam is taking care of Mormont, it means that he's not going to be in a couple of episodes unless they cut back to him, which is kind of sad because Sam is kind of like, he's kind of like the fun heart of the show. So, like, he's the one who kind of gives hope to the show a bit.
They might. The way that the books are structured are from POVs, but sometimes the books overlap.
That's
so
true.
You might see Sam later.
I hope that the writers like Sam. I am not 100%. I don't know if they would forego telling Sam's story in lieu of more action, is all I'm saying, or more Arya scenes. So, yeah.
Is that a segue?
It is if you have nothing else to talk about, Jon Snow.
I have nothing else to talk about.
Jon
We
Snow.
know nothing about Jon Snow.
No, but I have good guesses. I have an educated guess about his mother. And his father is not Neddard Stark.
Okay. Let's see. Before we talk about Arya, there was one thing about the Tyrells that came up in the inside of the episode. And I'm kind of torn on this. They're like, one of the writers was like, "Oh yeah, the Tyrells are kind of seen as a monarchy, even though they have like, you know, they have strong warriors and fighters, because, you know, Loras is a strong fighter, still yet to be proven. They're like, the women run the show. I got to be consistent. They're like, the women run the show. I wrote down that it should be shown more strongly that the women are kind of the runners of the Tyrell household. But at the same time, I think they do a good job. Like, in hindsight, looking back at the episode, I think they do a good enough job of inferring it, that they have strong women, which I think is what they were going for. It feels like a really weird thing to add, especially because there's a lot of other things they could talk about on the inside the episodes. I appreciate that they said it, but like,
you
I
and
found
I talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I go back and forth on whether they did it well or not, which I guess is just, it's more of like I guess they did it fine enough. Oh, and then also for Daenerys, they still have, what's her name? Doria, but then they introduce another servant who's jealous of the relationship between Khaleesi and Doria. So.
No, Eerie, or is it Jaqui?
I don't know.
I don't know. They don't name them. They don't name
Eerie.
them.
I think it's Eerie.
Right.
I think it's Eerie.
And I think it is too. But by the way, Eerie lives. Eerie lives. So does Ricardo. Doria dies at the very beginning.
Which makes me
and
sad.
The showrunners knew it.
I think that they like the actress for Doria, and that's why they keep her alive. Because that happens. It's like, oh, we like the actor. Oh, it's fine. We'll just have them do this other thing. And then maybe they're reading the book and they're like, oh no, we can't have them do this. We like them too much. So
maybe it's just not that big. Like, it's probably not a big deal. To be honest. Sometimes I feel like we make mountains out of molehills, but come on, Ricardo lives.
I don't know. I also, my other last note on that is it's interesting how Middlefinger was oddly likable to Margarine Tyrell. I thought that was kind of interesting, but also it kind of betrays whatever. You know what?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you did remind me. The Tyrells are barely in book 2. So you wouldn't necessarily get that information from book 2 that the women run the show. You don't really get that from the second book.
Yeah, you have to infer it in the show even. But it's weird that in that case, it's even stranger that they bring it up now. Now, is that the case later on in like A Storm of Swords? Does that become more apparent?
It's apparent pretty early on.
So why bring it up now? I don't know.
I don't know.
And again, it's not...
I think
the
they
stuff
like
they
margarine. That's why.
I mean...
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
She looks like Lyanna.
Who... Is that what Margarine's supposed to look like? Is she supposed to look like Lyanna?
She is. In Game of Thrones, they're trying to actually get Cersei out and have Robert marry Margarine.
Really? But isn't she like...
Yeah.
I read that she was like 15.
Yes.
Okay. That's why they paired her off with Renly. Then. And they can't pair her off with Stannis because Stannis is already married. They make that clear in a couple episodes. All right. Interesting. Wow, I wish they had like some time in all of these episodes to convey that information, but oh well. Let's move on to Arya.
They gotta have a Joffrey horror scene instead.
Yeah, apparently. They've got to have...
They're making him more cruel than he should be. Mm-hmm. Arya. Yes. We are introduced to the brunette John Wick, a.k.a. Jaqen H'ghar. A girl saved 3 lives, so a man can take 3 lives. I love Jaqen H'ghar. He's awesome. But
yeah.
Again, he's, in my mind, he's lanky, gaunt. He's black hair, long black hair. He's John Wick. Clean shaven, but black hair. He's John Wick.
Since you saved 3 lives, will give you 3 lives. Consequences.
Should have done it, man. Just should have done it. And
heaven forbid they have an American on the show, or a Canadian, I should say.
And the tickler falls down off the roof, and Jaqen H'ghar does this: 2 fingers to the cheek, casually, saying, "1 life is gone, 2 remain, Arya." Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts in Harrenhal. Is Arya the last person we have?
Just Tyrion holding up the wildfire.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts on Arya's story. I like this twist, but again, it's in the book, so it's like, all right, it's already in the book. But I do like this. I like how it's like you know, your actions have consequences, John Wick, or Arya. And I have so many questions about this character, and they do a good enough job of making him seem mysterious, but also likable to the extent that like Arya doesn't trust him. We don't necessarily trust him, but ... And again, part of it is also like your reaction to some of these characters will inform my perception of them in the show, and I'm okay with that. I submit myself to that. But I do think
I've got more to say about it in the next episode. Next episode I'm just looking at next episode I'm going to just ream it.
To be fair, also I like that he's disguised as a guard, and it brings us up like, you're serving them now, and he's like, girl, you're serving them now. And she's like,
yes.
Well, I was forced into it. And he's like, okay, well, anyway, other business. You know, we have things. You know, since you saved me, I'll save you. Blah 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 blah. So that I like that. Can we move on to Tywin?
Please.
Okay. So Tywin deduces that Arya's a Northerner. He does all of this stuff, and this is gonna play. I know. Hey. If I didn't If I didn't have Wikipedia up, I wouldn't have remembered that. I have a note here. Tywin is trying to save the people, but they hate him. No, Tyrion is trying. Okay, that's something else. We'll get back to that. That's Tyrion. Tywin may have figured out that Arya is the note that I have in here. However, do you feel, and I guess this is a better question for next episode, do you feel like Tywin is as like what's the right word? So in my mind, Tywin is kind of like this unstoppable force. He's like a strong leader. But I don't get that sense when I watch the show. I feel like he makes a lot of simple, easy mistakes. Do you feel like Tywin is still following the way you thought he would in the book in these episodes?
Tywin is well cast. But I've, since reading the books and everything, and knowing the world, I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it. Far from. For one thing, I haven't finished reading any of them, or I haven't finished reading the series, so I'm definitely not an expert. But he's human. That's what I get from him, is that he's a very special human. He's very wise, very smart, very calculating, but he is not some great leader that can just run roughshod over everything. He's just very tactical and strategic. That's and a forceful personality. So he definitely is a leader, but he's not infallible because he's still human. And one thing from the show, everybody's got flaws.
I would have thought though that I feel like he's too vulnerable in the show. Like he shouldn't be as vulnerable as he is. And this has more to do with the next episode, I think, than this one. Okay. But I still feel like he's not as tactical as he should be. I feel like he misses too many details that he should know about. You were saying how he's very guarded and he keeps things close to the chest. In this episode, especially in the next episode, it seems like he's like storming around and firing people willy-nilly. And he feels like he's too vulnerable. So that's my only thing about Tywin, is like I don't think he's as intimidating as he should be.
Was this the episode where they he's talking to her and she's like trying to like, oh no, that's the next episode.
That's the next episode.
Yeah. Yep. I just had the note in there about Baelish arriving at Harrenhal, which doesn't happen.
Oh yeah. God. Yeah.
My last note on this is a Tyrion note. So I'm
done. I'm done in Arya. Yeah, I'm done with Arya.
It's great seeing Tyrion. He goes down and meets Wisdom Helene. He's a pyromancer, an alchemist. And
that's Roy Dotrice.
Already.
The guy who does all of the audiobooks for Game of Thrones. He passed away recently, so rest in peace.
Oh. Yeah, Tyrion's running the city, basically. And people look at him and they don't like him. And he's just like, don't like me. I'm the one who's trying to save them, and like Bronn points it out to him. It was a great moment. Moment. I don't know if that happened in this episode or a previous.
That happened in this episode. That happened in this episode because I have written down that Tyrion is trying to save the people and they don't like him anyway.
It was so good. Now, one thing that is unfortunate is that it really is unfortunate. So this scene with the wildfire in the books happens about maybe 30% of the way through, so probably episode 3. But then you also get this mystery in the book too. You're like, what's Tyrion doing? Because he's visiting these smiths, and he's telling the smiths, I don't care what you're working on, stop. You're going to build this giant chain. Start making these links. Giant chain links. Huge, as big as you can. And you have no idea why. None. As the reader, you're very curious. Like, what's he doing? What's he doing? What's with this giant chain link? And so that was like a mystery in the entire book. What is he doing with this giant chain? And no mention of that. He rides the city all the time. He's out with the people. In a lot of scenes, he actually goes to the brothel that Varys recommends. Varys creates a hidden passageway for Tyrion to go underground and come up and then go to this manse, kind of like a mansion or a house. Mm-hmm. That's where Shay is. And so many times as Tyrion's going along, he's talking with Bronn or he's talking with other people about the problems that they're solving amidst the city. But Shay is not in the keep, in the Red Keep. She is not tending to Sansa. She is in the manse. She is away. Tyrion rides out to her in secret. So that was but I'm missing the chain, and I'm missing this being Tyrion's book or Tyrion's season.
Tyrion's story.
Yeah, he's first billing, and I feel like he's not.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts about that episode. Those are all my thoughts.
Yeah, I was going to say just quickly, like, I guess Joffrey is going to catapult all of the fire at Stannis' forces because his forces are coming by sea because of Davos, right? So, Davos. and then I guess Bronn, and according to Wikipedia, Bronn doubts the logistics and odds of Joffrey's idea. So then Tyrion is like, I'm going to have my own of this fire.
I'm not sure about the purpose of it, but it was Cersei who started the commission of all the wildfire. Yeah. But then Tyrion takes it over.
Yep. All right, episode 206. We're running really long. I feel like this is going to be one of those podcasts. Every episode's going to get longer, and people are going to be like, "Dude, it's longer than the actual episodes." But this is the situation that we have put ourselves in, and God bless our wives for being understanding. All right. You don't like this episode is my impression because you said you were going to tear this one apart. I actually liked this one. I thought it was pretty good.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
All right.
Start wherever you want to, sir.
I'm starting with the title of the episode, Old Gods and the New. Makes no sense with the episode. Bothers me. First thing. So I think this is how the episode begins. Tyrion and everybody is on the docks and they're watching Marcella being shipped off to Dorne.
Nope, it begins with the raid at Winterfell. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Because I remember that. I liked that it was a standoff between Bran and Theon, and Bran was showing that he was a true Stark because he was harsh and cold as the winter.
That was a good scene.
So I liked that.
And then Roderick Cassel rides in. Was that also in the beginning too, or did that? Well, let's do Winterfell. Let's just.
Okay, we'll start in Winterfell.
Let's go north to south. Okay. With Winterfell to start. Yeah, that was a great scene. Yeah. And this was very different than the book. Roderick Cassel comes in and just very different when Theon rides on in.
So how does it happen in the book?
Theon and the Ironborn sneak up to Winterfell, take it over. They do similar dialogue with Bran. I think it's been a while since I read it. But then in Roderick Cassel and a bunch of men are going down to Torrhen Square. Because that's where they think all those people are. Remember, Bran sent them away?
Yeah.
And it left Winterfell unguarded.
Yep.
And Roderick Cassel went down. Well, when they come back up, Theon's got control of Winterfell, and actually they start ransoming. He's like, well, I've got your daughter here, Roderick Cassel. Like, bend the knee, or I'm going to kill her.
Bend the knee to me.
And he's also, having sex with a bunch of the women there too, but he's very unsure of himself. He's like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? There's Roderick Cassel. Quick, get his daughter, and he puts a knife to her throat and just like you yield or whatever. And it's just like, it's crazy tense. It's crazy tense. And he ends up killing her. It's all bad. It is just a bad situation, and it just gets worse. Theon doesn't know what he's doing.
That was one of the things. Okay.
And in the show, Roderick Cassell comes riding in. So already it's different, right? You don't have this whole daughter ransoming thing coming in, which, it is what it is. Roderick Cassell, for a television show, he's a minor character. Okay. But then he comes in and he dies. And I think I already knew he was going to die. He dies in the books too. He comes in, he does die. But in the show, I feel like the viewer's probably watching it going, I don't know how this is going to turn out. Is Theon going to kill him or not? And then, his first mate, Dagmar Cleftjaw, is like, you got to show them that you're going to. So I thought that was actually very good. Especially
agree.
For the television show, the budget, what they had to deal with. I don't think the ransoming and all that stuff would have it probably would have made for good television, but I think that would have been lengthy, hard to shoot. That was one thing that I thought they did a good change on.
Okay.
I wrote on here, it was great acting, just all around great acting.
You want to push
Roderick Cassell's death.
You want to push your character to a decision, and they make it a very easy decision. On one hand, you have what Theon needs to do to keep morale up, embodied in his first mate. On the other hand, you have Bran and the Maester shouting, "You promised that all lives would be saved." You push Theon to make a king's decision. What do you do?
Yes.
So I think it's a different kind of decision, but I really liked that. I really liked those scenes. And then you have Osha pledge allegiance to him, and he's like,
"Oh dear,
you think so? So you can so I can put a spear in your hand, so you can kill me." And then
you get to see your birthday suit.
And then Osha presents a different kind
Tonks.
of... Yeah. Tonks... Well, Tonks can change her shape into anything she wants, so there you go. Osha presents a different kind of thing, which I'm not sure how it plays out in the book, if that even happens, but, I think
I'm shaking my head.
I was going to say, I think they don't do a great job in the show of, like, because Bran is like, "Oh, you're turning coat on us," and blah 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 blah. I never got that feeling. I was like, I feel like you're too close to Bran. Like, you've established too much of a relationship to do that. Speaking of establishing things, the stuff with Roderick Cassell, it probably has more of an impact on me because I've talked to you about Roderick Cassell. So I was like, oh yeah, Roderick Cassell. They could have spent more time making him more significant, doing little things, especially if they knew that they needed his death to be significant, because his death feels significant in the show. It seems significant to Rob, but I feel like if you don't know who he is, you're just like, okay, like he's like you can, as a filmmaker, you can make someone cry just by using film devices. Bad movies do it all the time, where they're using these devices. I cried when
Lady died.
Well, I'm not saying that's bad filmmaking, but like, there's things you can do to make it. Like, there's things you can put forward. You can play music. You can emphasize them with the camera. You can edit around them, to make certain effects happen. So the only reason we feel like in the show that Roderick Cassell is significant is because the show is telling us that he's supposed to be significant now. So that's what I wanted to get at about, like, what you were saying about, like, his daughter and everything. It's like, well, he's just a minor character. It's like, yeah, but if you know that it has to be impactful, you should do work beforehand to make sure that it's not just the show saying he's impactful because the show wants you to feel bad when he dies. With that said, very grisly death. Actually, almost comical. When I saw those blood splatters appear, I kind of laughed a little bit. I was like, this is really gross. And then when he kicks the head off, I was like, yeah, that's brutal. But then they had these, like, weird blood splurts when he'd bring his sword down. It's like, blurting comically like, "Oh, I've got juice." So,
yeah. So Osha helps them escape, and Jodrin and Mir and Reed, who I talked about last episode, who aren't in there right now, they also help them escape too. So they're all together. Hodor, Rickon. Rickon
sighting.
Bran, Osha, and then Jodrin and Mir and Reed. All of them are together. I know these weird characters that aren't in the show. I'm not saying that they won't ever be in the show, but they're there now.
Yeah.
And throughout that, so Osha's kind of taking the place of Jojen Reed. Jojen is the one who's telling Bran, hey, open your third eye. Like the Raven has a third eye. Enter Summer, train to go inside Summer's body, and train to become a warg. They mention the name warg on the show, but they don't really say that that's what it is.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Anyways, just a little background.
Yeah.
So they all help him escape, and they're training Bran. They're training him, and they're teaching him, and they're working with him to do this special ability. So that's kind of cool. I kind of wonder if Osha is going to play that same role. I don't know what they're going to do in the show. I thought it was fitting, though, that Theon couldn't get it out clean on the first shot. I thought that was kind of funny and just like, yeah, it's kind of thunk. Like, you're just not... You're not Ned. You're not.
Does that happen in the book?
He doesn't know what he's doing in the book. He has no idea what he's doing. He has no clue.
No, I know, but like, does he end up cutting off Roderick's head and it's messy?
I can't remember.
Okay.
No, I can't remember the detail.
Well, yeah, I know. I was gonna say like little things like that are. This is why I think this episode is directed better than most episodes, because a lot of stuff is happening visually, but there's even more or there's a lot of stuff that's being told to us, and then there's two levels of visual storytelling. There's the obvious level, and then the little things that are happening that are reinforcing the ideas. Let's go farther north. Let's go to past the wall, or unless you have anything else to say about Winterfell.
Nope. I think that was it. Yes, that was it.
Okay.
So let's go north. Yeah, let's go north of the wall to find the half hand.
Yes.
Quarren half hand.
Find the half hand.
Find the half hand.
Right.
But Jon doesn't find the half hand. He finds Ygritte.
He does.
Very different than the book. They come upon the wildlings. The crows attack the wildlings. And then they leave Jon to deal with Ygritte. Quarren says, all right, Snow. Go ahead and deal with the female wildling. And then they all leave him. And Jon looks at her with the sword, long claw at her throat, and then lets her go. And then he goes back to Quarren and he says, I couldn't kill her. And he says, He says, like, I'm really sorry. I know you wanted me to kill him and everything. And Quarren says, no, I want you to deal with it. And that's how you dealt with it. And now I know a little bit more about you, Jon Snow. And then Jon asks, well, what happens if I would have killed him? Or what would have you done if I would have killed her? And he responds, well, then I would have known a lot more about you then, too. And that was kind of how it went. Different than the show, obviously.
Right.
In the show, he's going to let her go, but then he doesn't, and he's running after her, then they fall. And I've got two notes about this.
Okay.
First moment is that there was a great, funny scene where they're sleeping, and she's kind of like wiggling, and he's just like, stop that.
Stop moving.
Awesome. I thought that was awesome. That was so good. And then I'm going to just destroy it in a second. So, what did you think?
So one thing about this episode is, like, I know I complain about the showrunners hating women, which we'll get to that when we talk about the inside the episode a little bit. But one thing I liked about this episode is that it was an episode where all of the women had a chance to shine about something. So Ygritte, she like shows her moxie, and she shows that she can kind of outfox Jon Snow, and she's also like our first exposure to what the wild people are. So I liked it. I just felt that like it felt weird that Jon Snow's been patrolling this, and it's like well, one, I understand why not to make a fire because that'll cue the people in the Mons Raider. But at the same time, John, you know that these dead bodies are going to come back to life. So why aren't you throwing them on the fire and just moving on? And two, she's like, we need to hide in a cave. And he's like, no, we're going to stay out here in the snow. And I'm like, dude, if you look a little bit to your right, you will see a giant overhanging cave-like thing to hide in and stay warm. And finally, I've been out in the snow when it's really cold. Why are their faces exposed?
And this is where I was going to absolutely destroy it, because obviously the books are very realistic. They camp in the snow, but they set up these tents and they find shelter. They go under rocks and coverings and things like this to do it. And you and I, we know it gets pretty cold at night in the snow. Now I'm California. I'm pretty weather, dumbed over here because it's been great weather. But I did do snow camping when you and I were in Boy Scouts, and this is where this actually kind of bothers me. I mean, it makes for great television, so it's like whatever. But Ygritte does say, we're going to die out here. It's going to get too cold. You know what? You know exactly what we did. We built snow domes.
Yep.
We had to build these domes out of snow because that was shelter that was going to save our lives. And they're just out there sleeping in the elements.
Doesn't make any sense.
With their faces exposed. And that's obviously where the books diverge, because George R. R. Martin kept it pretty realistic. He does talk a lot when they're walking in the snow about how like they're feeling this frostbite starting to sneak in on them a little bit. And
also the other thing is like my immediate thought is that now, because Jon is separated from all of his men, now it's going to become Avatar, the movie, where Jake Sully is brought back to Neytiri's camp, and he learns their ways and all this. And I'm just like looking at it, and I'm like, is this where it's going? Because it seems like this is the direction it's going to go in. So, and if that's the case, again, stick to the. But also, if this wildling in the book is Ygritte, I can see why they wanted to expand her role in the show. I don't know.
This wildling is Ygritte.
In the book. In the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Although it would also be more interesting to like put Jon to that point. And I feel like Corin Halfhand's character is very underdeveloped, where they just probably were like, we can't do that because we didn't spend enough time establishing him. Like, I didn't realize he's supposed to be a legendary hunter. Maybe I'm not paying close enough attention, but I feel like they didn't do enough homework beforehand to make it seem like, I know a lot more about you now, Jon Snow. Anyway, that's all I have.
Maybe they just assume that the viewer's just going to see it and take their word for it when it happens. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I get it.
I guess, but like it is interesting to have another character be like, that reveals a lot about your character. And like, well, what if I did this other thing? That would also reveal something about your character. Maybe it's all... and again, novels have to introduce something and reintroduce it, especially when they're that long, so that like you can keep track of it. But still, it would have been a nice character moment that, because like you're constantly trying to judge Jon Snow's character, I guess, in the book, because like there's all of these things that are put in front of him, like being a leader, being that guy. Like, do you kill this person or do you let them go? What's the best choice? We don't know, but what you do will determine it. So
that is something I have to do when I read, is that as soon as I get to another POV, I pause and I think, okay, when was the last time I saw this character? What do I know about the character? Who are they with? What do they know? And it it takes some mental fortitude. It's great, yeah. Like, for example, in every Jon Snow chapter in A Clash of Kings, I remember this because I remember reading it from the beginning, that in Game of Thrones, his hand got burned. And every single chapter, I was like, okay, it's Jon. He's got a burned hand. And yep, about maybe on page 2 of the chapter, George R. R. Martin would write, and he squeezed the fingers of his burned hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if
One
that's
thing that
another
they
reason
didn't
people
do-
don't like his writing, is because he has to be very repetitive. Like James Clavell is very repetitive in his writing, which I like, but I can see people not liking it. Go ahead.
This particular episode's gone on a little long. We can talk about the writing in a future one. I think it'd be a great idea to do it, and I'd love to. But yeah, they this wasn't in this so far, but Ghost actually finds a pile of a bunch of dragon glass daggers and arrows and things like that. So he finds like a package in the ground, and you're not quite sure who put that package there. Was it Benjen Stark? Who, by the way, does the viewer remember why they're going outside of Castle Black at this point in the episode? No, they don't. And it is reiterated in the books from Jon's point of view. They're still searching for Benjen Stark, figuring out what's going on with Mance Rayder, but he's definitely part of it too. But yeah, no, it's okay. Uncle Benjen. Oh well.
Yeah. No, that's bad on the show. Is that they do need to reestablish that, because I did not remember that at this point. I don't have anything else to say about Beyond the Wall. So if you do,
it for me too.
Where to next?
More of the good. We got Robb. He finds Talisa, and then Caitlyn, and I wrote awkward. And the other thing is that Robb learns of Winterfell, but Roose Bolton says that he's gonna have his bastard ticket. No, Roose Bolton's bastard. His name's Ramsay, by the way.
What do you know about Ramsay Bolton? Or Ramsay Snow?
Ramsay Snow. He. Well, all I know about him will be revealed probably by the end of the season, and then that would be all I know. So everything I know about him is from book 2.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it there for now, except that Roose Bolton has a bastard, and his name is Ramsay Snow.
Ramsay Snow.
And then I don't remember why I said Caitlyn scene is awkward. Probably because Caitlyn's like, you're kind of promised to a fray, and you're kind of flirting with this girl Talisa, who's from Voltanis, and she's a foreigner, and why is she there? How did she get there? Do the showrunners even have a backstory there? I don't know. I'm not even going to think about it.
Let me see. I appreciated it. I felt like it was trying to keep with the POV. I felt like this episode was trying to keep with the POVs, which is another reason I liked it. They tried not to break from POVs of characters in the books a lot. I like that they reiterated, like, Robb, remember, you have a duty. You're welcome to flirt, but you can't do anything. You don't get her. And he's like, oh, no, Mom, gosh. But I like Richard Madden, and I love all of that stuff that he's going through. I don't have a ton to say about that. Does he send Caitlyn out again?
I don't think so. Obviously, this scene doesn't happen in the book, because I told you about Robb.
I do like how Robb feels very betrayed by Theon, and now he's like, I want him here, and I can't wait to kill him. Or not, I can't wait to kill him, but like, I am going to personally execute him for this crime against us. And just setting everything up of like, Theon has a skeleton crew. So I think they set up the stakes for that very well about what's going to happen. So that's all I have on In the Westerlands. Okay. Where to next, sir?
I am going towards. I'm going to save Karth for the end. Okay. Let's go to Harrenhal with Mulan's story. Oh wait,
Harrenhal.
now they know that Arya is a girl, so now she becomes a scullery maid or scullion, whatever that is. So now she's Snow White because she's still a princess and she talks to animals. So she's a princess, and now she's taking the role of Snow White. So there it is, right? I told you, she's the chameleon princess here. So she learns about Tywin and Baelish saying that Margarine would be queen. And there was a great moment where she's trying to hide her identity from Peter Baelish.
Yes.
A.k.a. Middlefinger.
Yes.
With Tywin there. And that was... this is the good, right? That was very
Brilliant
good.
direction.
Well done.
Yep. Brilliant direction.
Isn't it weird how, like, some of the good, that's it. We just mentioned, it was great.
Okay.
Let's hammer out
I mean,
the bad.
I think also part of it is like we're looking at the time and we're like,
yes, that's true.
Here's why it's brilliant direction. Because they don't communicate explicitly what needs to happen. And at first you're kind of like I remember I was like, oh, it's Middlefinger. She wants to kill Middlefinger? And I was like, does Middlefinger know who she is? I don't remember. And then I was like, oh, Of course, Middlefinger knows who she is because she was at King's Landing and he was at King's Landing. Okay.
Yep.
So then it's it's almost like a comedy sketch where she has to like avoid being seen by him, but it's done in a way where it's like everything feels like it flows perfectly well. Like I love very intricate tracking shots. And that's what this felt like, but without it being a tracking shot. Like, very intricately staged, and it used everything in a filmmaker's arsenal because it's using good staging, good camera work, good performance, good editing, and they even have the running away from a monster and you trip scene where she spills on him and he's and she has to like avoid her gaze or whatever. Right. So like they have all of these little things in there that work really well, and that's why I really liked that scene, even though Middlefinger is just. But yeah, I even wrote that down. Middlefinger and Tywin with Arya is a very well directed scene, so I thought that was great.
One line, of course, that's not in the books was when Tywin says, "Oh, what killed your father, Arya?" And Arya said, "Loyalty."
Yes.
Great moment, great delivery, just really excellent.
Yep.
Not in the books because so in the books, Arya's nowhere near Tywin. Nowhere near him. She is a maid for one of this person and it's just nowhere near. So I have to say that was a good direction in the show to make her and him interact as much as they are. Well done.
Except
now. No.
Were you gonna move on from that point?
I was. Let me hear.
Except Tywin does not feel as intimidating as he should. I don't know why. I don't know why they decided this, but it almost feels like they want to make him kind of like have some sort of like fatherly feel towards her, or like he's kind of like looking out for her. It's like, oh, you read, I'm mildly impressed. Oh, that was another thing that I liked. Another detail that I don't know if it's in the show or in the books, but like Jaime is dyslexic. That's brilliant. I don't know if that's in the books, but it's like
I don't know either.
So I don't know what effect this might have for it going forward. But when Tywin is saying like, I tried to teach my son how to read, but he would come back to me and he would say that all of the letters were backwards and he couldn't find it. I was like, that's such a great detail. Like, you never think about this, but people probably had dyslexia in the Middle Ages and they didn't know how to handle it. And now Jaime does, and that makes him so much more real. So I loved that. That's countered by Arya basically doing a little like, oh, yes, sir, let me get something for you. Shuffles over to the table and quickly pulls down the paper. And it was just like, I thought this guy was supposed to be brilliant, close-guarded, extremely careful. But here he is like, you idiot, I'm gonna fire you. You'd be happy that I didn't do anything worse than that. And like, why are you a cartoon character? Why are you a cartoon villain? I don't know, but that's the vibe I'm getting. Like he's not. The actor is a great actor, but I sometimes wonder. Sometimes actors want to have like these human moments. Like I need to humanize my character. I need to make them more relatable. And I feel like Tywin shouldn't be someone who we relate to or who we connect with. I feel like he should be at an arm's length at this point in the series. He should be intimidating. He should feel scary, and he doesn't feel scary. He still feels respectable, but he doesn't feel scary. And it should be dangerous anytime Arya's around him. I don't always get that feeling.
I actually 100% agree with you. I wasn't sure where you're going with that, but even now where I'm at in Storm of Swords, Tywin's at arm's length for sure. He's just yeah. So okay. That's interesting that you feel what you feel when watching versus what you think it should be. And anyways, so the deaths that Arya calls in. Mm-hmm. The Tickler lives. Yeah, the Tickler doesn't die in the books. He lives. Instead, Arya overhears people gang raping a woman, and so she asks Jaqen H'ghar to kill him first.
Okay. And
he falls from a building, just like the Tickler did. So Tickler dying versus that guy, I don't know how that's gonna play out in the novels, but anyways. So then the second death is the one that really bothers me, because in the show, he's the Armory Lorch. He does die in the books too, but he dies off page. But he's running around and he's about to really say it, and Arya's like, "You got to kill him now." And it's like, "Oh, the death happens. The man doesn't know when the death will happen, but it will happen." And then all of a sudden you see a poison dart in the neck. And I've got a huge problem with that. Problem 1. Where are their poison darts? Seriously, where are their darts? They don't fight with poison darts. I'm sorry. They fight with arrows. They fight with steel and wood. They don't fight with darts. Second, everybody in Westeros says that poison is a woman's weapon. So these giant armies would not really have poison around like that. And what would Jaqen H'ghar do? Would he go to a Meister's thing and just quickly pull out a poison vial and rummage around to find a poison dart? So come up somewhere and shoot the dart into it? It's just, it doesn't add
So for the people who are listening who might be confused by well, obviously he already had it on him, but he could not already have it on him because he was already a prisoner. So that's why Lucas is saying, where did he get the poison darts unless he hid it up his butt? That would be the only thing I could think of.
Unless he put it in his prison wallet. It's got to be in his prison wallet.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense where he got these poison darts from. It's like a plot. In this case, it would be a plot hole. Go ahead.
It would. It 100% a plot hole, because when we first found Jaqen H'ghar, he was a prisoner from King's Landing, and they were taking him away. And really bothers me. I know.
It did not bother me until but that's huge. It didn't bother me until you laid it out like that. And now that I'm thinking of it, I'm like, that's an excellent point. Why didn't he just use his poison darts at any time when he was captured if he still had them on him? And he wouldn't have it on him.
Right. Where did the dart come from? But my beef gets a little bit bigger. I know. At this point, it's like, okay, well, how could it get worse? Well, in the novels, the person Arya is working for is a terrible guy. He beats people for not being on time with the food. He's terrible with this. He's just a mean, bad guy, and I think he even chops off limbs, and he's bad. So Arya is thinking about okay, whose life do I get to kill next? Who do I get to kill next, right? Because she's learning that, who cares about lives, right?
Yeah.
They're just lives.
Right.
They're not a big deal, right? And so she has Jaqen H'ghar kill the person who's supervising her. And this is where it gets really fascinating, because she's walking out of the yard one day, and all of a sudden she sees a dog mauling this person. and the person on the ground was the one she said the name. Weiss is the name. I had to re-look it up. It was Weiss.
Okay.
Weiss was the second death. And the dog was just biting the throat, ripping it out. It was brutal, right? Which you could do in a television show. If you have trained dogs, you could do it.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. And then you get the line from a character that says, "That's very strange. Why would the dog attack Weiss? Weiss had that dog since it was a pup. And now the dog just all of a sudden went crazy and killed him. Like, that just doesn't seem right." And then Arya looks around and she sees Jack and Hagar standing up there with one finger to his cheek, one life left. And did I make my case?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's
Third.
Yeah. Go ahead. Third.
So the three prisoners are together and Arya's looking for Jack and Hagar, and so she finds the two guys that are just horrible. They're like, look at you, you're really a girl, they say terrible things to her, and she's like, I'm looking for Jack and Hagar, and all of a sudden they're just like, they're really scared of him. They're like, I get it. Like, he's back there. They're actually like really scared, and she goes over and he's just like chilling in this hot tub, like, what is it a girl asks? And I'm just like, God, this guy is just so cool. This John Wick guy is so cool. He's so cool. Okay. I'm done with that.
I'm actually going to go back to Rob's story. You were talking about, like, you
Sure.
don't know much about the girl. I don't either, and blah, blah, blah. But then as she's wrapping up the note, they cut back to her eyes, and she kind of has a little bit of shifty eyes. And all of this stuff is done on a very small level.
Oh,
where,
okay.
like,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you notice it, you notice it. And if you don't, you don't. But if you notice it, you wonder a little bit more about, like, who is she? Who is this person? That was the note I had on that. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, again, it's a difference in, like, how they present the information. Sometimes I wonder if it's like the Aladdin problem.
Ooh.
So in
I
the
didn't
movie
notice it.
Aladdin, they have a problem where Aladdin tricks the genie to get him out of the Cave of Wonders. And the genie's like, all right, well, that's the only freebie wish you get. So then they have to find a way to force him to have one wish left. And the way they do that is by throwing him in the water and having the lamp somehow rub against him. And then he has to, like, I don't like that one. I think the middle use of the wish is not put in a way that feels natural for the progression of the story. It feels a little forced. And so I wonder if they ran into this problem on this episode where they needed to get a second death because it forces Arya into one more kill and she has to, like, use it for whatever means. Maybe we'll find out or not. And the way they did that was to try and ramp up the stakes by having her find this letter and deliver it. But again, those problems are there because they decide to truncate
Yes.
Arya being a servant for someone else and make it for Tywin. So,
It's tricky, right?
John,
Like, it's
back
tricky.
to John Wick, consequences. It is
tricky.
and I don't know if it worked or not. I'm still.
Well,
we'll find out if it worked.
I when I was watching it from what I just said, I think that Armory Lorch would have been running and then a dog out of nowhere comes flying out and starts ripping out the throat. And I think that would have been like...
That would have been a better use of it. But
really good
he does
use.
say it takes time, so maybe he had to rush and they couldn't figure out a good way to make it rushed. And
That's
now
true.
all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's an assassin in our midst.
Right. And of course, in the books too, right? It's super mysterious. You're like, how did he let that dog...
Yeah.
Like, how did... What's going on? And that's what I really liked about reading that issue. Anyways, that's all I got from Harrenhal. I got the second to last thing I've got for you, and then
King's Landing.
Yeah, King's Landing.
Let's go.
All right. When I read this scene in the book, I was kind of traumatized. It was scary. They were seeing Marcella off, and then a huge riot happens.
Poor Marcella.
Marcella's off. She's fine. And of course, the
I know,
books,
but
right?
still,
It's
like,
a little bit more like, okay, you got to go to Bravos, and then you got to go down to Dorne. You can't pass Dragon. It's crazy.
It's just like looking at her face as she's leaving in the show, though, is just like, it's heartbreaking. And then Cersei threatens Tyrion, and I'm like, all right, I hope she never finds out about Shay.
Yes. Right? Right?
So maybe a little bit of foreshadowing there. I don't know.
And before I get to the riot, too, there is one thing that the show is completely missing. Completely missing. I forgot to mention it earlier. Sansa. She is going to the Godswood, and everybody's like, oh, she's going there to pray. But no. The guy who is about to be drowned in that first episode, Sir Dantos, he's meeting with Sansa in the Godswood saying, I can get you out of here. I can get you out of here. Just wait a little bit. Like, I can get you out of here. And she's like, wait, seriously? You can get me out of here? And
Oh, because he saved her life.
He did. He saved her life. Or she saved his life, right, from drowning.
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to get you out. I'm going to get you out. Keep meeting me here. And then they start saying, like, different names to each other based off of fairy tales. Oh, my Jonquil. Oh, my Florian Knight. You're going to rescue me. You're going to save me. Get me out of here. And I just remember reading that just so nervous that, like, what's going on? Like, is this guy a spy? You can't trust anybody in King's Landing. And just
right.
the constant beatings that she's getting, and then this could be an out. Like, it was just so, like, it really spoke to me when I was reading it. And, of course, not in the show. Or at least not yet.
Not yet, anyway.
I don't know if it ever will be. I don't know if it will be, but it's not in this season. And it's like, could they have done it? Yeah. They could have had several scenes, instead have these scenes. They clearly have the actor for Dantos. They might do it in the next season, but why don't they just do it this season as well as next season? I don't know.
We know why. We know why.
That's true.
Because they don't like Sansa.
We know why. But then you got the mob. And they're actually on horseback when they're riding back to King's Landing. And then you can actually trace it out. They have a map of King's Landing in the book. So you can actually trace out their route that they take to get to the castle. And it's scary. The cow pie hits him in the face. And actually the whole thing begins by this woman walking in front of the entire procession, holding up her dead baby. And then she gets triggered and just starts going absolutely crazy. And then you get the mud pie on Joffrey's face. God, great acting once again, flawless. Yeah. And he actually gets touched, and he almost gets pulled off of his horse and into the crowd. And the priest, the septim, he falls down. He gets in the crowd. He gets lost. He gets ripped to shreds by hands and torn apart.
That's what we saw in the show.
That scares me.
I thought that's what we saw in the show.
We did. We saw the arm come up, and that's like a nightmare for me. So I was very much like reading this going like, oh my God. And then Sansa's gone. Sansa's just gone. And you're like, wait, she's not a POV character. And from reading before, you're like, well, they killed Renly, so they could kill Sansa. Like, oh my God. Like, I was freaking out reading it. And
wait, Sansa is a POV character though.
She is, but this scene was not from her point of view. It was from Tyrion's point of view.
Tyrion's point of view.
Yeah. And I thought they were going to make the riot like half an episode, but then I went back and reread it, and it's only a couple of pages. But those couple of pages hit me like this was a huge, major event. So they get back, and then the scene in the book continues. There is a fire that breaks out in Flea Bottoms. The whole place is burning. Everybody's hungry. There's riots in the street. It's crazy. Get the city watch out there. I mean, there's coordinating, and he's like still, he's trying to manage his own emotional thing. Tyrion, yes.
Okay.
He's trying to manage his own emotional, like, oh my God, I just got through this mob. I almost died. And then, like, where's the Stark girl? And just, oh my God, now I got to work with the city and just manage all these things together. It was just, it was a great scene.
Great scene in the book. I thought it was a pretty good scene in the show as well.
Me too.
The thing that I found most significant was after they discussed it, Tyrion took Joffrey aside and like started like basically talking down to him and slapping him. And he's like, oh, blah, 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 you know. And it's like, all right, it's a good comeuppance for Joffrey. It's like, it's what we've all been waiting for. And then it cuts to Sansa, and like, I figured that was in the book, where it's like she's almost raped, and then the Hound comes in, and the Hound comes in and saves her pretty much, right? No, who?
Yes, that's right.
The Hound does, yeah.
The Hound,
yeah, that's right, single-handedly, because he slices the guy's. Yeah, that was
actually, awesome. In the book, he like jumps off his horse and goes into the crowd after her, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome. Yeah,
the scene where he rescues her is off page. He just brings her into the keep. It's
okay.
Awesome. And no, that was like, I thought that was a great television moment. They did a great job with that scene. Yeah. Just finally. Good Sansa.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not, because she doesn't have any agency. But it's great acting. Because I love the relationship between the Hound and, she's been doing a great job acting.
Yes.
And I like the relationship developing between Sansa and the Hound, and this pushes it farther. And then Tyrion's like, thank you, and he's like, I didn't do it for you. It's like, whatever. Like, I understand what they were going for, but it's like, it's whatever. That bugged me for some reason. I didn't do it for you. I'm like, he's just saying thank you. He's just saying thank you.
Yeah, but not
it's
for
not
you.
Even like
Matt.
Like, whatever.
I've got one final comment on this, but I kind of want the last word on it. So,
you're talking about the last word on King's Landing?
Yeah, on King's Landing.
You have it. Go ahead. Last word.
Last word is, it was a horrible transition to the next scene. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I thought that it was a great job showing a very traumatic scene, and then all of a sudden it just, Tyrion slaps and they're talking and they're just kind of there. And then all of a sudden the scene just switches to Karth, and it's like peaceful. The transition just really bothered me. My emotions were high, they were riding rough, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I gotta like get my mind and emotions like under control now, because now we're watching Daenerys talking with the Spice King, and which was a great scene and everything, but like I wasn't prepared for this quick transition. So that was my last comment. It was terrible, terrible. I wrote my notes in capital letters. Horrible transition to Karth. Just
fair enough. Let's talk about Karth.
Let's talk about Karth. I really don't have much to say except for Rakara lives, and Eerie lives too.
I don't think Doria is making it out of there alive. I think that's the person who was on the floor, right?
No, that was Eerie.
That she goes to the.
Doria's still.
That was. Oh. Okay. So, did you like the scene where he's talking with, or where Daenerys is talking with the Spice King dude?
I did. I thought that was really good.
I did too.
I thought that was great. Except for the emotional transfer from the riots.
Well, so I kept thinking that that guy who was talking to her, the spice merchant or whatever, he looked like Eric Stone Street from Modern Family. So I was just like, do you also moonlight as a clown? Anyway, but I liked that scene. Well, so I liked that scene.
Yes.
I felt it was a little redundant, the amount of times he's like, it's just a business transaction. We get the meme of her being like, I'm the mother of dragons. I will burn you. And the only problem with that is, like, as she's saying it out of the staircase, she looks a little awkward. It's like, by fire or something else. And it's just like a kind of an odd angle for her to be at. And also the show does a good job of reiterating, like, this guy did offer to marry you and basically solves all your problems. Why aren't you taking that? And the problem is that they don't establish early on that if she marries him, he gets one of her dragons. If they made that clear in the last episode, then it would make more sense why she's like, nope, I don't want to do it.
Well,
So that's
maybe
for
they're
that
saving that
scene there.
Yeah, they might be saving that piece of information, or they may just like go through it and like who cares.
My thing is like maybe, but why? Because the reasons for not marrying him don't make much sense. Aside, the best they can come up with is like, I was married to Khal Drogo. Like that's the best that they can. I feel like they can come up with, and it would be better if they had a more concrete reason why the decision is so tough. The decision that she has in front of her now, stakes wise, doesn't feel that tough because it's like, yes, but the benefit of marrying him, and he seems like a good guy, and he has all of this wealth, and it checks so many boxes. Why is it a bad thing? And they don't give us a good reason why it's a bad thing, except, but you won't have full control, even though she's basically sacrificed, like for the Silks guy, just for like a couple of ships, she's willing to like basically mortgage the throne. So I don't understand, like, it goes back to, like, I don't understand why, except maybe, like, I don't think they set that up very well. And that leads us to the last scene, I guess?
Yeah. So, I'm terrible. This is filler. Dragons are stolen. I don't care. It doesn't happen in the books at all. It's not a part of the story in the books. So, when the dragons were gone, it was terrible. I just saw the dragons gone. She's all panicking, and I'm sure the viewer who hasn't read the books are probably like, "Oh my god, let's get out the dragons!" But I'm just sitting there watching, like, I don't care.
Yeah, I kind of rolled my eyes. I was like, "Oh, this seems like a cliffhanger for cliffhanger's sake." I agree with you. It felt very. It felt like there's a great video about like why this one guy doesn't like, why the guy who does Just Right doesn't like the Aquaman movie, and he's like, it feels like sometimes they have a lot of exposition and they need to wake up the audience, so they have a jump scare. And that's what that felt like. It was like there's a lot of exposition going on, we need to have our jump scare.
It gets worse for me too.
Why?
Because of the inside the episode.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
You ready? Are we?
I am.
All right. Let's finish. This will probably be my final thoughts. Be honest with you on this slew of episodes that we just did, because, and we're gonna talk about it for a little bit, but I mean everything else we covered. So yes, inside the episode, this is what bothers me, big time, is that the dragons were stolen and the showrunners, I refuse to call them the creators. The showrunners.
No. Let's be specific. David Benioff. Let's be specific here. David Benioff. He's the one who says these things. Yes. Go ahead.
You know exactly where I'm going with this, don't you? He says that.
So.
He says that. Oh, and the dragons are stolen, so Daenerys reverts back to her old self. Scared little girl as her dragons are being stolen. And I disagree with the character. I don't think that's what Dany would do at all. I really don't. And I don't think she would revert back into her child character. Like, no. She's done too much. She had a stillborn baby that was taken from her. She's not... And you ready for this one? It's precedent. This has happened before. Her son was taken from her. What did she do? Did she act like a scared little girl when that happened? Heck no. Daenerys went up to Mir Maz-Dur and burned her to the pyre. She got revenge, and that is where it really bothers me. In the beginning, yeah, she's running around frantic. Where are my dragons? Where are my dragons? Where are my dragons? But she's not scared. She's ready to and maybe in the later episode, the next one, maybe she is going to do this. But when Benioff did say that she reverts back to her childhood self, I had such strong emotion against that. I was like, no way. When her son died, she didn't revert back to Viserys beating her. No, she burned her to the pyre. This precedent has already been set. She's going to go with flying rage at whoever took her dragons. She's going to do everything she can to get it back, because that's what a mother would do. They're not going to be scared. They're going to be like, I'm going to get my and I'm going to find them, and I'm going to make whoever took them, I'm going to punish them.
So, David Benioff thinks the worst thing in the world is to be a little girl, because he mentions it twice in the inside the episode. He says, oh yeah, and Arya, we're really seeing that, like, Arya's not a little girl anymore. Like, we see that she's this is where it flipped for me, where, remember when you were like, oh, I think DB Weiss is more attuned than David Benioff is? And I was like, no. And you're like, yeah, David Benioff seems really pretentious. This is where I'm just all in on what you said. I completely believe you. Because, yeah, he's like, oh, and when Arya says, like, he died, what killed him? Oh, his honor. And it's like, yeah, loyalty. And Arya's learning loyalty. And she's, yeah, Arya's learning that, like, the world is more complicated, and like the thing that she's learning to lose is like her loyalty. And I'm like, I don't know if I believe you, David Benioff. Also, he's obsessed with, like, oh, she's growing up, she's becoming more mature, she's not a little girl anymore. Like, that's the worst thing ever, which also speaks a lot about why they don't like Sansa, especially in the beginning. So then they get to Daenerys, and he says it again. There's no proof in the episode. There's nothing indicating this. But he pushes forward that her losing her dragons reverts her back to a scared little girl. Is it really the worst thing in the world to be a girl, or even a little girl? Like, no, there isn't. It's normal. In order to become a woman, you have to be a little girl at some point. So I found it very condescending that he said that. And yeah, that's my big takeaway, is that, like, this is an episode that was written by a woman, and she put a lot of effort into making sure that all of the women felt honest and real and textured. And then the creators come in and they're basically just like, we're going to be condescending to all of these characters. We're going to take out anything that makes them interesting, and the only reason we like Arya is because she's a tomboy. That's it. So, no, it bothers me immensely, and it again pushes forward the notion that, like, maybe these guys don't know these characters very well. And what you said, keep that in mind about her reverting and them thinking she would revert back. You're going to have to keep that in mind, Lucas, for a while to see how this interpretation of Daenerys by these creators evolves over the course of the series. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. So keep that in mind, all right? I'm sorry if you think it spoils something, but we shall see what happens. Yeah, just absolutely awful interpretation of the episode.
And to your point too, when you're, about the characters, about the showrunners understand the characters, I don't know if Arya would have that kind of conversation with Tywin. The Arya in the book would just keep her head down. She wouldn't do anything, wouldn't draw attention to herself. She would become, and this might be spoiling something too, I don't know. She would become invisible. She wouldn't become completely unnoticeable. And that's how I think it would have gone. She wouldn't have answered him. She would have just, she's not Sansa. Sansa would have said loyalty. That's what Sansa would have said.
Sansa, but
yes, my lord.
You know
yes,
what?
My lord. Of course, my lord. Of course. And then, what killed your father? Loyalty. That's what Sansa. That's
it's too
probably
clever.
What Sansa would say. Yeah.
It's probably too clever for Arya.
Yeah. Exactly.
Shame.
But it's a great television moment. Great television. I praised it earlier, and now it's like, would the character say that? It's a great TV moment. It's a great screen moment.
It's. Do you have anything else to say about the inside the episode?
No, I said my piece.
All right.
I thought you were very good at what you said too.
I'm ready to close out the episode, but one thing I do want to, that you have pointed out a lot, and that happens a lot, and something we need to track over the course of the show, is the effects that these characters have on society, because that is something that is very. You've alluded to it already. I've watched a couple of videos that talk about this, and clearly the society is very important. How the social nature of Westeros and the whole world works is an important thing for George R.R. Martin to represent. And the show, I don't know if the show understands it as well as they should. The question that I keep coming back to is like, if Tyrion's so good at his job, why are people still hungry? You've explained that, but he's like, but it's like shocking. It's like, I thought Tyrion was supposed to be good at this, and yet there's still thousands of people hungry. Why is that? You've explained it, because there's war, and during war, things fall through the cracks, crops get burned, but none of this is explained in the show. And the show doesn't necessarily care about the societal impact, but that's a huge part of the book. The fact that they're missing that in the show is like that they'll allude to it, but it, like, especially because it drives some of the events in the series. The society is driving the events. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on to see how that develops in the show, or even if it continues to develop. So.
Yeah, because if you don't have that, you're just like, oh, let's just watch these characters at these locations, and you're just like, wait, no, there's actually a world that they live into, and the world that they live in is very good.
A little bit of work in it goes a long way. So we'll see if they continue to do that, or if that's something else that's in the books, and the only reason they have it in the show is because it's in the books. That's my thought, is because it's in the books, it's there, and they fail to grasp the significance. That's my understanding of it. But we'll see if that's the case moving forward.
And for the next verse, I'm very interested. We'll be watching 4 more episodes, and a huge part of the books, from Caitlyn's POV, is her family at River Run. Not in the show. Kind of wondering, when are they gonna start doing some of these things, because they have ramifications. But River Run so far, not in there whatsoever. There's something that happens that's been going on that's very relatable. She has to deal with her elderly father and her brother, and it's just something that is not in the show. I know they have to make hard decisions and hard choices. So it's very key to the story as well. So, we'll see if they come back. And yes, Blackwater Bay.
I'm very excited about these next 4. And I will say this, the show, there's things in the show that are keeping me interested. A lot of the things that I didn't think I would like about the show, I do like. Although whenever I look back on it, I'm kind of like, of course it had to happen this way. But it does make me want one of my problems with the first season was that it was too few episodes, and it feels like that's still a thing where it's like there's an amount of detail that's required of books like this that even putting it in a television show would need 24 episodes instead of just 10. But it's probably too expensive to do 24, and it's hard to retain. It's hard for audience retention at 24. But that would go a long way to help with getting everything that we need into the show. But anyway, do you have anything else to add to this verse? No? All right. Well, that is another verse closed. Please keep going. Email us at waymarpod@gmail.com. The music is by my good friend Mike. He's done some excellent work on this and on Under the Wheels. I am Matthew.
And I am Lucas.
And that is another verse closed in the song for Sir Waymar P. Royce. Everyone have a great rest of the day.